Meet Julian Playson, a side-branch noble who had every schoolgirl swooning back in the day, despite not being high royalty. Trust me, you and I are about to see that his charm is the least dangerous thing about him. But that was then. Today, he is a battlefield nightmare known as Julian of the Hidden Eyes. The guy is an absolute prodigy, a double threat mastering both elite swordsmanship and deadly magic. He is famous for slaughtering hundreds of demons with a smirk on his face. His mana control? Completely legendary. But here is the kicker. Julian can read people like a book, seeing their fear and anger as glowing colored auras. Yet, despite his overwhelming power, even his own family is terrified of him. They are constantly plotting to eliminate him. As the strongest branch family member, he could easily seize control of the entire main house at any moment. And honestly, the original Julian was such a ruthless villain, he definitely would have done exactly that. But here is the massive twist that nobody knows. The real Julian is actually dead, and the soul inside his body right now is a modern reincarnator. His real name is Lee Se, a modern guy who was totally obsessed with a fantasy game where the hero gets murdered by the treacherous Julian. Lee absolutely hated Julian, yet some twisted gods decided to drop him straight into the villain's body to rewrite his fate. The massive catch? He has the overpowered body, but absolutely zero combat skills. To survive and hide the fact that he is completely powerless, he must keep up the villainous act. To pull off this crazy bluff, he has to act just as cold and cruel as the real Julian. So, while proctoring a school exam, a student accidentally bumps into him. The old Julian would have vaporized the poor kid on the spot. Looking around, the room is flooded with purple auras, the color of pure terror. Except for one instructor who steps in, Eileen Donasia. She is the only one not radiating fear. Back in school, she was a magic prodigy turned professor. Since they were classmates, Lee knows she must absolutely despise him. Suddenly, a hint of purple aura flickers around her. To convince this girl that he is still the same ruthless villain, he drops the most savage, overly polite insults to humiliate her. And it actually works. Julian does not want to be mean. He is just trying to survive, and we can all see his panic here. His next move is declaring that mistakes must be paid for with a duel to the death. He expected her to beg, giving him an easy exit, but she calls his bluff, charging up her mana to challenge him instead. If he is pointing a sword at kids, he has to go through her first. Her face is full of raw emotion. Julian expected pure hate, but this is completely unpredictable. Since he is secretly weak, he is in actual, life-threatening danger. When she turns to yell at the students to run, Julian channels his inner villain, striking from behind to shatter her magic barrier. She is completely stunned. Mages are helpless at close range, but something is wrong. Her blushing face makes no sense. Plus, his attack felt incredibly weak. She was terrified, but in that exact moment, her long-hidden feelings come flooding back. Years ago, she idolized Julian. Even without a high noble title, he was perfect. No girl could resist him, including her. She admired him for years because he had it all: looks, class, and supreme talent. She eventually gathered the courage to confess, but he ruthlessly rejected her. Noticing her aura of anger and fear has vanished, our main character moves like a ghost and slips past her guard. But instead of striking, he gently pats her head, whispering that the battle is over. A duel usually ends in bloodshed. But Julian drops a line completely out of character, saying he would never use his sword to harm someone as beautiful as Lady Eileen. All he wanted was directions to the exam hall. This completely breaks her brain. You might be wondering the same thing she is. Why is he suddenly acting like her old school crush? As they walk, our hero recalls her words. She was talking about Julian's signature technique, wrapping his blade in pure mana. The glowing blue blade looked like he was holding pure moonlight. Julian used this legendary weapon to slay endless demons, earning it the nickname the Moonlight Sword. Feared and respected by all. This weapon is Julian's calling card, making it incredibly tough for Lee to fake using it. Worse yet, Eileen already noticed a shift in his style, which is terrible news. So, our main character decides to deflect her suspicion. He turns to the two students trailing behind them and asks if there is a problem. Terrified, they quickly shake their heads and keep walking. Soon, the three of them arrive at the training arena. Pushing the doors open with a smirk, Julian apologizes for being late, playfully blaming it on poor Eileen. He formally introduces himself as today's exam proctor, fully aware that these terrified kids already know exactly who he is. Heron scans the crowd, locking eyes with the second son of the Torso family, a clan famous for its long-standing ties to the Criard house. Joining the Hidden Eyes is a massive honor, making competition fierce. Normally, the exam requires a direct duel between an instructor and the applicant. If Julian fails, the Torso family's heir, The Elder Association will seize the chance to destroy him. Heron is convinced this is where Julian's legendary run finally ends. Our villainous hero addresses the candidates, asking if they truly want to join the Hidden Eyes. Shaking with fear, they squeak out a yes. The silver-haired Julian scoffs, calling them nothing but a bunch of cowardly trash. He mocks their soft, spoiled eyes and laughs in their faces at their pathetic swords. The squad they want to join is the most brutal in the Empire. As their senior, Julian promises them a real demonstration. To pass this exam, they simply have to kill him. Panic erupts among the candidates, absolutely terrified by this deadly condition. Julian stands tall, holding his sword with confidence, even though he is secretly sweating bullets. Lee thinks his bluff has worked, but Heron approaches, warning him not to hold back during the test. Against Eileen, our hero could rely on cheap tricks to escape, but now he is forced into a genuine, open duel. This will expose his lack of strength to Heron and the students. Plus, without being able to summon the Moonlight Sword, everyone will think his legend is a lie or that the amnesia rumors are true. Crushed by the pressure, the young man completely freezes. To make matters worse, if he acts even slightly suspicious, Eileen might instantly turn on him. Eileen is watching his every move like a hawk. White-knuckling his sword, our hero scrambles for a solution, deciding his best bet is to bait and provoke them. Mocking them, he repeats that the exam only ends when he is dead or when everyone else is wiped out. But the terrified students refuse to take a single step forward. Julian stands his ground, looking completely immovable. Suddenly, a trembling hand rises from the crowd. A boy, pale with absolute terror, begs to withdraw from the exam immediately. Soon, several more hands shoot up, all begging to quit. Among them, the Torso family heir looks utterly disgusted by these cowards. Gritting his teeth, he hates admitting defeat, but pressure wins out, and he slowly raises his hand too. The instructors are absolutely stunned. Every single student is dropping out of the exam. Julian laughs behind his hand, his cape fluttering as the candidates run away with their tails between their legs. The exam is off. Trust me, you and I just watched the ultimate bluff succeed beautifully. All right, you and I are back with Julian, whose terrifying reputation just saved his skin. But now he is curious if his scary stunt only made Eileen even more furious. When he glances at her, though, she looks completely calm. He cannot detect a single ounce of anger, making him wonder if his fear aura is actually broken. Still, the display reminds her of the old Julian Sunbay. Back then, he always bypassed useless fights by doing exactly this, paralyzing his enemies with pure, raw dread. Later, over at the Shut Eye's headquarters, a voice calls out to our silver-haired lead. It is Heron, offering congratulations for the exam, but Julian is not the type to care about empty praise. He drops his hands onto Heron's shoulders, instantly terrifying the poor guy. Relieved that his fear aura actually works, Julian playfully deflects, claiming Heron did all the heavy lifting. Suddenly, another guy cuts in with stars in his eyes, raving about how epic Julian was. He introduces himself as Lazarus, the administrator for the Shut Eyes, declaring it is an absolute honor to meet him. After a showing like that, those rumors about Julian losing his memory seem completely fake. The test wrapped up without a single blow thrown, but Julian is already sick of the gossip. Lazarus excitedly points out that a noble from the Torso family was there, yet Julian did not hold back. That news hits Heron like a stab in the chest. Furious, he points at Lazarus and demands to know if he is mocking the noble's failure, especially since everyone knows the bad blood between the Torso and Cryer families. With total composure, Julian points out that someone has it wrong, because the Shut Eyes, being directly under the Imperial family, never accept nobles into their ranks anyway. Only commoners or disgraced nobles can apply, which makes Heron ask if Julian is not a noble himself. Chuckling coldly, Julian explains he is just from a side branch, basically regarded as a lapdog of the crown. The young noble from the Torso family joined the exam knowing he would never pass the second round. Maybe his family just wanted him to gain some experience. Or maybe, just maybe, there is a dark conspiracy running this entire test. Watch closely, because Heron starts visibly shaking the second Julian says this. Heron squeezes his fists, terrified that his secret plot has been exposed. But Julian suddenly breaks the tension, casually calling it all a simple misunderstanding. Heron remains completely stressed out, and Julian delivers a chilling warning. If this is not a misunderstanding, things are going to get very ugly. Returning to the estate, Julian is finally back home. The maids greet him with respectful bows, and he glides through the hallways with a quiet smile. A maid asks if he wants dinner, but he declines. He orders her to make sure absolutely nobody disturbs him in his office. She quickly agrees, her eyes filled with nervous dread as she bows. Now, behind closed doors, Julian is finally left alone. He drops his blade onto the table, sinking into a plush chair after a grueling day. Having caught Heron's guilty reaction earlier, he is now positive that the exam is rigged by some hidden scheme. He was lucky to escape suspicion today, but wonders how long that luck can last. If the association exposes his lack of skills, he will be kicked out of the family. His gaze falls back on the weapon. The reality that he has no idea how to channel the moonlight sword is starting to seriously weigh on him. In this world, mastering that sword means possessing the ultimate power to dominate others. With that in mind, he unsheathes it once more, determined to see if he can make it respond. Maybe with some training, he can tap into its hidden power. A faint blue glow coats the steel as he draws it. Holding the hilt tight, he raises the blade, studying its surface. Unsurprisingly, the magic does not just turn on. Julian's body possesses an innate gift for swordsmanship, letting him instantly visualize the perfect trajectory the moment he holds a blade. It is a genius talent he was born with, making any weapon feel natural. But unfortunately, raw technique is not going to cut it here. You and I both know the Empire is full of master swordsmen. What truly sets Julian apart and has kept him alive is the absolutely massive gap in how he controls mana and aura. But as he gets ready, he remembers that channeling mana is highly dangerous. One wrong move, and the energy flows backward, completely destroying his internal organs. The risk is terrifying, but he cannot afford to hesitate now. Sooner or later, he is going to have to prove his strength. If the laws of mana are identical to the game he played, then his thousands of hours of hardcore experience will definitely give him the edge he needs. He must channel the raw energy from his heart into his meridians. Out of 38 energy pathways, 6 are major veins that run all the way to his head, connecting the essence of mana directly to his core. This is the area he needs to ignite. Julian opens his crimson eyes as his aura begins to surge. Satisfied with this breakthrough, he prepares for the next step, directing the energy outward. The mental resistance is intense, but his gaming reflexes pull it off. In an instant, the blade ignites with a brilliant lunar glow, though the light rapidly flickers out. The energy coated the steel, but it was barely a flicker, like a faint crescent moon. Still, it is a start, the very first step toward mastering the blade. A bit later, we find him in the courtyard surrounded by training dummies. Drawing a deep breath, he grips his scabbard, prepares his stance, and readies his strike. In a blinding flash of speed, Julian blitzes forward, absolutely obliterating the dummy. Wooden shards explode into the air behind him. Sighing in relief, Julian realizes he has finally reached the level of a certified knight. But to fully master the Moonlight Sword, his game knowledge will not be enough. He needs to find a reliable ally who can guide him. Right on cue, a maid rushes over to announce he has a visitor. This feels like the perfect chance to seek out the expert advice he desperately needs. Too bad, it is just Lazarus. The excitement instantly drains from Julian's face, though the Chatterbox administrator is absolutely thrilled that the young master actually remembers his name. Honestly, it is impossible to forget someone who talks like a parrot in his presence. You have to wonder if it is bravery or just pure stupidity. Cutting through the useless small talk, Julian demands to know why he is here. Lazarus explains he was sent by the commander to deliver the results of the VA Academy exam. Julian thinks it is a waste of time since the outcome was obvious anyway, but protocol is protocol, no matter how annoying it gets. Turning away, Julian bluntly tells him to report that 0 applicants passed. But right as Lazarus is about to walk out, a sudden thought makes him call out to wait. Julian double-checks if this report goes directly to the commander. Learning that it does, he decides to deliver the message in person, leaving the young administrator completely stunned by the sudden offer. Julian drops a heavy hand onto his shoulder, offering to ride together in his carriage. Lazarus instantly pales with sheer terror, frantically asking if he did something to offend him. Julian tries to reassure him, but let us be real. His scary reputation is just too strong, and that is where we leave it. Stick around to see what crazy stunt he pulls next. Alright, let's dive back in as Julian faces a massive choice. Should he ask that man for advice? The commander of the Shut Eyes must know that mysterious silver-haired guy incredibly well. With the Shut Eyes watching, the Crayfart family will never pull off their shady schemes. Meanwhile, far away in a gorgeous golden palace, an officer bursts in shouting, desperately trying to warn his commander of a massive crisis. Stammering, the young soldier reports that that man has arrived. Yes, Julian Cryer-Playson himself has come to visit, but the commander remains completely calm, slowly repeating the shocking news. His mysterious gaze hides deep secrets. Meanwhile, our main character is staring at the breathtaking palace of the Adrathan Empire. He never, in his wildest dreams, expected to see it in person. The continent of Rosenda, the game's main setting, is ruled by 3 great nations: The strongest is the Adrathan Empire, which is exactly where Julian currently lives. After the demon Barbados was sealed, these ruined lands united under a mighty king, creating an empire. This grand palace is the ultimate symbol of that power. Inside, Lee is absolutely losing his mind over its beauty. But on the outside, Julian keeps his classic cold face. Lazarus, however, is sweating bullets because of the creepy, quiet chuckles escaping the swordsman's lips. Wait, something feels incredibly off. Usually, a high noble like Julian is impossible to reach without dealing with his servants first. Yet here he is, visiting the captain personally, and he even brought a commoner. It makes zero sense. The nearby crowd starts whispering. One guy mutters that he heard rumors the young lord was gravely injured, but looking at him now, he seems totally fine. Now, everyone thinks the rumors of his amnesia are complete lies. As for poor Lazarus, being here is a massive honor, but his anxiety is so high he feels like he might pass out right on the spot. Looking around with a satisfied smirk, Julian remarks that the palace is as grand as ever. He explains they are at the outer gate, and the captain is waiting somewhere beyond the second checkpoint. But this casual chatting seems incredibly weird to Lazarus. This place should be second nature to a member of the Shut Eyes. Suddenly, a terrifying thought hits him. What if this entire trip is just a secret test? Looking at the swordsman's cold, condescending face, he is convinced. Julian thinks he is incompetent and wants to test his worth again. But pay attention here, because Julian is actually just admiring the scenery he only ever saw on his old monitor. When he finally notices how terrified his companion looks, he simply asks if he is doing okay. Lazarus quickly squeaks out that he is totally fine. Shimmering gold from the massive walls glitters all the way to the horizon. But as they reach the doors, the terrified recruit finally asks if he passed the test. Totally lost, Julian asks what on earth he is talking about. He laughs it off, saying there is no point in testing him. But the recruit takes this as a sign that he is already considered a fully qualified elite. He bows repeatedly, thanking Julian before skipping away while humming a happy tune. Our main character is left standing there, completely baffled by this kid's incredibly weird personality. Just then, a guard approaches to let Julian know he can enter. The moment has finally arrived to meet his fearsome boss, Captain Odwin Ballader, the sole heir of the legendary Ballader noble house. Through pure, terrifying strength and leadership, this man rose to the rank of captain. He is the only one who can control the wild members of the Shut Eyes, answering only to the imperial family. Lee starts picturing how insanely charismatic this legendary warrior must be in real life, which makes him sweat a little. Standing before a grand, ornate door, he asks to enter. A soft voice says, "Come in." But when he steps inside, the person sitting in that massive chair is absolutely nothing like what he expected. Looking incredibly serene, Odwin Ballader welcomes him and asks if the rumors of his injury are true. Julian is in absolute shock. The legendary captain is actually a tiny little girl. He tries his best to maintain his cold, stoic face, but her tiny stature has his brain short-circuiting. Sure, in Lee's memories, the captain was described as short, but he never expected her to look like a literal high school student. This is beyond ridiculous. Suddenly, her tiny index finger points straight at Julian's face. In an irritated tone, Odwin asks if he was about to call her small, just like always. Awkwardly, the young man denies it, realizing her legendary aura is indeed very real. She immediately demands to know about his injuries. Crossing his hands behind his back, Julian hesitates. He realizes he has to tread incredibly carefully here, as one wrong word could ruin everything. Since he knows her character inside and out, Lee knows that if he slips up, she will become suspicious of his every move. Even though the original Julian was an arrogant jerk, he was fiercely loyal to the Shut Eyes. So, keeping up a respectful front is crucial. Bowing deeply, the young man thanks her for her concern. He tells her his injuries were severe, but not enough to shake his loyalty to the Empire. Suddenly, a suffocating silence fills the room. Lee panics, wondering if he messed up. The captain just stares, putting a finger to her lips. "You and I both know this looks bad." She slams her hand down, breaking the silence, then marches right up to Julian and says something about him is completely off. Julian squeezes his eyes shut, desperately wishing he could run. She asks why he is talking so formally, bringing the heavy hilt of her sword right up to his face. She mutters that he is acting like an absolute stranger. In a panic, Julian sees a dark, negative aura radiating from Odwin. It is the deep color of denial, meaning she is genuinely starting to doubt his identity. Desperate, Lee wonders how the original Julian actually acted. Making a split-second decision, he reaches out and grabs her sword hilt. If he wants to survive, he needs to play the part of a bold villain. This instantly annoys her, since she hates anyone touching her blade. She steps back, muttering that he barely ever shows up at headquarters, and when he does, he just drops his reports and leaves immediately. So, acting this polite is incredibly suspicious. Lee thought even Julian would maintain professional boundaries with his boss, but he realizes he completely miscalculated the original character's sheer arrogance. Smoothly, the young man explains he came in person simply because his injuries kept him away from his duties for far too long. It is time to unleash the bold, shameless attitude of the real Julian. Wearing a sarcastic smirk, he asks if she is seriously trying to micromanage his schedule now. She replies that rumor had him acting weird after his accident, but clearly, he is back to normal. Still, seeing how brutally direct Odwin is with Julian makes him a little uneasy. This girl is definitely not your average commander. Shifting gears, she asks about the recent entrance exam and if there were any promising recruits. Julian bluntly replies that there was absolutely nobody. The captain sighs, saying she expected that. As the disciple of Hayden Reich, his standards would naturally be sky high. Still, she asks if there was at least one decent trainee, but the boy denies it again. Glancing down at her paperwork, her voice drips with annoyance as she asks if he really failed every single student who applied. With a smug grin, Julian confirms. Furious, she demands to know why, but Julian just stands there, smiling silently. Now completely enraged, she slams up so fast that her captain's hat literally flies off her head. She snaps that the shut-eyes are desperately short-staffed, and even one extra recruit would help. But Julian fires back, saying being desperate is no excuse to recruit useless idiots. She believes some of those kids had real potential, but Julian scoffs that training them would be a waste of time. In truth, this was all just a clever excuse Lee made up to avoid fighting them. Completely done with him, she tells Julian to get lost. But before he takes a single step toward the door, he tells her he actually has a brilliant proposal. Reaching into his coat, he drops a white envelope on her desk. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see how she reacts to the absolute roast of her exam system inside. All right, you and I are diving right back into the chaos as a confused Odwin picks up the document. Reading it, she realizes Julian is right. The candidates have absolutely no idea what kind of deadly organization they are trying to join. As she reads his written words, one brutal sentence stands out. It warns that once you sign up for this exam, the shut-eyes take zero responsibility for whatever happens to you. To Odwin, this feels like a straight-up death threat. It is a warning that Julian will face them with pure, unfiltered intent to kill. She asks if she is right, but our main character just lets out a sarcastic laugh. He avoids answering because, honestly, a high ranker like Julian has never bothered meddling in the organization's dirty politics until now. The captain finally realizes why he did not pass a single candidate. He wanted to avoid backlash after thrashing them. Julian confirms it, adding that Imperial-affiliated rookies would be completely useless anyway. He refuses to forgive anyone who drags the nobility down. Annoyed, Odwin notes he always gets touchy when the Imperial family is involved. She agrees to take his letter to the council, though she cannot promise their approval. Julian turns to leave, but the captain tells him to wait right there. She mentions an official Imperial message is headed straight to his office. Smiling, Julian looks back to thank her before leaving the captain watching his departure. Odwin keeps reading, dissecting his words. Waiving all responsibility means that even if a candidate gets slaughtered during the test, it will not be seen as a crime. But honestly, this is how the exam has always been. Only commoners and fallen nobles apply, and the powerful have always found it easy to sweep their deaths under the rug. Julian likely exposed this because he knew the Elders Association and the Torso family were plotting something dirty behind the scenes. Now, pay attention here, this letter is his ultimate warning. It is a clear message that he is onto them, and he will not tolerate another move. Maybe this is his grand plan for revenge against the Elders. Suddenly, a soldier interrupts her thoughts, asking if she summoned him. She hands over the letter, ordering him to deliver it to the council immediately. Until now, Julian was always mocked as the royal family's loyal lapdog, but it looks like the beast that once followed every order has finally grown a mind of its own and is breaking its chains. The thought leaves Odwin deeply unsettled. She must watch him closely. He is becoming a dangerous wild card. Meanwhile, Julian arrives back at his private office. Usually, regular agents do not get private offices since they are rarely on standby. You would expect a room inside such a massive association to look incredibly grand and luxurious. Sure enough, the place is packed with flashy outfits and some seriously creepy ornaments. None of this is for work. Everything here looks way more expensive and ridiculous than his actual home. Walking inside, he immediately steps on random junk scattered across the floor. Turns out, our protagonist is a massive hoarder. A knock sounds, and Julian calls them in. It is Lazarus, arriving to deliver a royal dispatch from the palace. With a bright smile, the intern carefully hands over the envelope. This must be the message the captain warned him about. But before the kid can leave, Julian stops him, ordering him to load up the carriage with sculptures. Shocked, Lazarus asks if he means all of them, and Julian nods. Overjoyed, the kid almost cries. He is thrilled to finally get a real task, hoping his intern days are ending. He eagerly starts hauling the gear. But as he hoists a massive chest, the poor guy trips over the floor clutter and crashes down hard. Fortunately, nothing breaks. Julian does not snap, he just smirks mockingly. But inside, the poor intern is panicking, absolutely convinced he is about to get brutalized. To ease the tension, Julian jokes that cleaning up a dead body would be too much hassle. Hearing that, the kid decides to move even faster. Now, let's check out this letter with our silver-haired protagonist. It is sealed with the imperial crest, looking exactly like it did in the game. The opening lines are written in a different handwriting, but thankfully, Julian is still able to read it without any issues. It basically tells him to get back to work the second he recovers, a polite way of saying he is a slave. Still, it is a great chance to test his sword skills. The goal is restoring a resonance stone. Remember, in this game world, terrible demons roam and everything went wild after the death of the demon god Barbados. His residual remains parasitized living hosts and spawned physical monsters to terrorize humanity. To fight back, ancient mages used their mana to forge powerful resonance stones, leaving behind a legendary legacy that serves as the ultimate defensive shield. Since Julian cannot use magic, his job is to guard the mage, restoring the stone. Hunting demons is incredibly risky, but he has no good excuse to reject the mission. Succeeding here will finally crush all those nasty rumors surrounding him. Now, he is just curious about which mage he will actually be babysitting. Since fixing resonance stones requires top-tier magical talent, he hopes they send someone competent. Meanwhile, far away in the Adrethan Imperial Palace, a brown-haired girl stretches lazily. This is Eileen, complaining about writing boring reports despite being a literal professor. It seems a mage always has to prove themselves to the greedy royals. A gentle tap hits her shoulder from Diana, a green-haired lady who wonders what brings her to the palace. She notes they haven't met in ages because Eileen is always busy, and invites her for tea. Though she wants to accept, the mage declines to focus on her thesis. Diana laughs that she is still as hardworking as ever. Suddenly, Diana points out an arriving carriage bearing the Cryhart collateral family crest. It can only belong to one person. Julian has arrived at the palace. Diana mentions hearing rumors that Julian was on his deathbed, yet here he is, fully recovered. With a playful grin, she notices her friend's reaction and asks if she still has feelings for him. She teases her about the old days, when Eileen dragged Julian to the Academy's legendary cherry blossom tree, hoping the rumor of a guaranteed confession victory was true. Panicking and desperate to change the subject, the mage quickly backtracks, claiming she suddenly has plenty of free time for tea. Diana laughs, telling her not to be embarrassed since every girl back then adored him. This makes Eileen pause. Looking back, Julian was a completely different person. His dark transformation happened after returning from the Northern Front to join the Shut Eyes. Diana asks if she will greet him, but Eileen scoffs, saying past feelings mean nothing now. Besides, she is about to avoid seeing his face for a very long time. Holding up a sealed letter, she reveals she is leaving the palace. And trust me, you and I already know what that imperial mission is. Eileen is the mage assigned to restore the resonance stone. Let's start with a classic setup, soldiers bracing for action, wondering why the hell there are so many guards on duty today. Word is, even the elite orders are joining. This is a high-profile mission, and even the legendary Julian is tagging along. The guards whisper about crazy rumors that he lost his memory. Honestly, nobody can picture a beast like him actually getting hurt in battle. Hearing this, our main character smirks, glad those annoying rumors are finally dying down. Just then, a couple of knights walk up to thank him for his service. It's Parn and Heinleich from the Blue Lion Order. Together, this squad has to escort the mages to Julin, keeping them safe because anything could happen out on these dangerous roads. Even terrifying demons could show up. One of the knights wonders why Julian is riding on horseback instead of relaxing in the carriage. He suggests letting the mages handle the trip so he can rest. Our main character knows they are acting polite, but it is not out of kindness. These blue knights are official imperial soldiers and mostly proud nobles, completely different from the Shut Eyes. They just do not want some guy from a side branch stealing their glory. But honestly, traveling inside a carriage does sound a whole lot more comfortable anyway. So Julian takes the offer, which is way easier than Heinleich expected. But the second the knight mentions they are waiting on a mage named Eileen, Julian's eyes instantly go wide with shock. But there is no time to process this because she has already arrived. Wearing a sweet smile, the mage introduces herself to the group, only to instantly lock eyes with the one person she never wanted to see. Breaking into a sweat, Julian quickly tells Parn to forget the carriage. The girl is stunned to see her ex-lover here, and absolutely insulted when he immediately turns his back on her. But Julian can't stand being around Eileen because he has no idea what she's actually thinking. Naturally, the soldiers completely misread the situation. They assumed Julian rejected the carriage just to flex his power, believing he caught onto their petty scheme to push him aside. To them, it makes sense for a guy who survived the cutthroat imperial family with zero backing. Still, they think he is incredibly arrogant for a mere side branch royal looking down on actual soldiers. Meanwhile, Julian is just screaming inside because nobody warned him that the target was Eileen, and honestly, she's feeling just as incredibly awkward about the whole thing. Now, pay attention here, this is where Julian decides to speedrun the mission just to avoid her. He hits the gas, arriving at the tiny village of Julin in record time. Even though they are official Imperial envoys, the place is a ghost town with nobody around to welcome them. Finally, a local kid carrying supplies spots the group. He greets them warmly, offering a guide to the resonance stone. While the soldiers start mapping out where to set up their defensive line, knowing the stones are super sensitive to mana, Eileen carries a box herself. But the guide asks her to come check out the main stone needing immediate repairs. The massive blue crystal has a giant, ugly crack. Eileen sighs, realizing it's beyond repair and needs a full replacement. She warns them the defensive barrier will briefly drop, but promises it'll be over in a flash. Placing her hand on the cold stone, she knows she needs to act like a professional and warn Julian that the barrier is about to go down. Even though looking at him makes her blood boil, duty comes first. But when she walks up to him, the guy literally turns his back on her. Again. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why is he being so petty? Well, Eileen is asking herself the exact same question as she tries to force him to listen. Grabby hands, Eileen literally snatches his coat, demanding to know why he is ignoring her on a serious mission. Julian just calmly replies that he is not avoiding her at all. In fact, he claims she's the stalker here. Her face goes bright red, almost falling for his sheer confidence. Shaking it off, she snaps that personal drama doesn't matter right now. Julian smirks, mockingly asking what could be so urgent to Miss Stalker, completely triggering her. But before she can scream, a massive explosion echoes. Demons have breached the town. Whipping around to face the threat, Eileen panics, yelling that this was her exact warning with the barrier down. Monsters can jump them at any second. Screams echo through the streets as a bloodied Heinlein stumbles toward Julian. But as our hero looks past him, his face completely pales with terror. Rising right behind Heinlein are two wicked, lethal horns. This isn't some low-tier grunt, it's a massive, terrifying two-horned demon ripping through their forces. Eileen steps forward, but Julian barks at her to stay back, it's too dangerous. As the beast lets out a deafening roar, she trembles, desperately trying to formulate a survival plan. Uttering a guttural, demonic command, the beast orders its minions to charge. Suddenly, one lunges straight for Eileen, claws raised to strike. But Julian flashes forward, blade drawn, shielding her from the blow. He tells her to keep her head in the game, smirk returning as he teases her for getting scared by a minor grunt. He tells her the swordsman should handle the physical fighting, and they need to stick to their roles. Stuttering, Eileen asks what they are even supposed to do. Pointing right at her, Julian says she is the mage who needs to fix the stone, and he is her ultimate shield. He mockingly asks if the elite academy teacher is too terrified to do her job. Snapping out of it, Eileen rushes off, shouting that she needs 7 minutes. Before running, she begs him not to get hurt since she has zero healing magic. Gripping his sword tight, Julian acts tough, saying he is too good to get hurt. But inside, our boy is absolutely terrified. He never expected to fight a two-horned demon this early. Retreating is impossible with all these eyes watching the rumors would ruin him. Now he desperately tries to think of how the real, powerful Julian would fight. Clashing metal cuts off his panic. The Blue Lions have finally arrived on the scene, ready to back him up against this monstrosity. Reaching the battlefield, they charge with total focus on the terrifying beast. Now, Julian, the Blue Lions, and the Spear Soldiers stand united, locked and loaded for an epic showdown. A soldier whispers a plan to slowly wear down the demon's health, jokingly asking if Julian is scared. And honestly, feeling fear definitely does not fit the cold, badass persona Julian is supposed to have. But the troops freeze when the silver-haired swordsman suddenly starts laughing. Lee realizes that the demon wastes no time, winding up a massive punch right at the protagonist, who looks like he is actually having a blast. Tapping into insane swordsman reflexes, his eyes lock onto the beast. He cleanly dodges the heavy swing and counterattacks instantly, dealing massive damage in one clean strike. With monster blood splattering his face, he grins like a maniac, while his blade begins to glow with moonlit energy. He sprints forward, leaping high into the air. And trust me, you and I are about to see just how costly one mistake can be. As he smirks, the demon's giant red eye locks onto him. He screwed up. Boom! The demon's head smashes directly into him. Badly wounded, he absorbs the crushing blow, the agonizing pain making it hard to even draw a single breath. All right, you and I are jumping right into a wild battle where Julian refuses to back down. He lunges at the giant beast's eye, plunging his sword into its skeletal frame before crashing hard, carving a massive hole in the soil. While the terrified soldiers panic, Parn tries to take charge, but a sudden shout cuts him off, telling them to look back. Through the dust, the boy's silhouette is still standing tall. His sword erupts with a brilliant, shimmering blue light. Instantly, one of the veterans on the field recognizes that legendary glow. It is the legendary Moonlight Sword, finally awakened and bound to its master. Everyone watches in sheer disbelief. Even at less than half of its actual power, this blade spells absolute doom for the terrifying monster. Radiating a fierce blue aura, Julian relentlessly steps toward the demon. Hyper-focused and thrilled, Julian feels the rush of battle, and the demon senses his deadly intent. But this fight is far from easy. Despite its massive size, the beast strikes with blinding speed. Luckily, Julian predicts every move using his innate ability to read opponents. Completely focused, he parries the incoming strikes, effortlessly dodging the monster's heavy charges with swift, graceful movements. His piercing red eyes lock onto his prey. The watching soldiers gasp at his unbelievable skill, and Parn finally realizes the boy's deadly reputation is entirely earned. Meanwhile, the skilled mages finish restoring the resonance stone. Leaning over the parapet, the girl screams down to the battlefield, letting everyone know the protective barrier is ready to be activated. Magical stones begin floating around the demon, drawing its attention away. Julian seizes the moment, coldly noting that looking away during a fight is a fatal mistake. Now watch closely. Julian zips forward, unleashing a devastating strike. In a flash of zigzagging light, he cuts clean through the beast's massive body, slicing it to pieces. The breathtaking display leaves Eileen and the soldiers completely speechless. The terrifying demon that once haunted their nightmares collapses to the ground like a broken puppet with cut strings. The monster hits the ground with an earth-shattering thud as our hero strikes a cool victory pose. The brutal battle is over, leaving the stunned crowd murmuring in absolute awe. Relieved, Julian realizes his desperate gamble paid off. Around him, the crowd watches in equal parts terror and admiration. Since Julian has a reputation as a villain, witnessing this immense power naturally terrifies them. As he stands lost in thought, a voice calls out, and hands gently reach out to grab his. A tearful soldier thanks him from the bottom of his heart. Shaking with relief, the man admits they all thought they were dead. Soon, a small celebration breaks out among the survivors. Parn also steps up to thank the swordsman, though he is clearly trembling and sweating buckets. Julian calmly pats the nervous commander's shoulder, asking him to handle the cleanup since he is not used to dealing with crowds. Now Parn realizes Julian is on a completely different level, standing far above ordinary nobles. To remain this calm after slaughtering a demon, it is almost inhuman. Slipping away from the noisy crowd, our hero sits by a crystal-clear lake to rest. Now that the adrenaline is fading, he realizes just how close he came to dying. He finally lets go of the terror, panic, and absolute despair he was holding back. His hands are still shaking. Facing a monster in real life is incredibly terrifying. He wonders how the original Julian could face such horrors without batting an eye. He tried so hard to act cool that he ended up scaring himself. He wonders if his mind is changing along with his body. Just how powerful was the real Julian? The skill he just unlocked combined his own gaming knowledge with Julian's battle-hardened instincts. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This power is broken, right? It lets him spot weak points instantly and deal extra damage to terrified enemies. Armed with this, erasing any suspicion about his identity will be a breeze. The only issue is the incomplete Moonlight Sword. Examining his signature weapon, he carefully slides it back into its sheath. The blade is covered in fresh scratches, having drained an insane amount of mana just to activate. Right now, its unstable power cannot compare to the completed weapon. But that word, stability, sparks a sudden realization. Smiling at his reflection, a brilliant plan takes shape. Meanwhile, far in the distance, noble banners flutter in the wind. Several hooded figures wait in anticipation. Suddenly, a finely dressed man opens the doors to a grand hall. This is the gathering of the Elder Nobles Association. A hooded figure commands the newcomer to sit. Trembling with fear, Harun looks completely terrified as they ask if Julian has uncovered their secrets and what he plans to do. Shaking with dread, Harun confirms the worst. Julian indeed knows everything about their secret organization. One of the nobles scoffs, claiming he always knew Harun's sheer incompetence would end up ruining their entire operation. He coldly adds that if not for his noble bloodlines, the useless young man would already be dead. Another lord notes the suspicious movements of the group called the Shut Eyes, who just proposed a shocking rule to the imperial secretary. Harun reveals the twist. They will not be responsible for any deaths during the exams. Hearing this, the nobles' faces darken. Outraged, one man slams his fist on the table, shouting that this is basically surrendering completely to all of Julian's demands. Chaos and outrage erupt throughout the grand hall. But suddenly, a calm voice cuts through the noise, suggesting this could actually be their golden opportunity. Lord Aiden clasps his hands with a cunning smile. He reminds the council that up until now, Julian has only acted on direct orders from the imperial family. But if he begins breaking free from his chains and acting independently, it will trigger a chain reaction of changes they can easily exploit. This would make him a far better pawn than when they sent him to the northern front. Shocked, another lord asks if Aiden suggests they just let him run wild. With a smirk, Aiden confirms exactly that. Back in his personal quarters, Julian takes a moment to rest. His room is filled with beautifully tended, healthy green plants. Surrounded by his own taste, he finally feels a deep sense of peace. The greenery brings a soothing magic that calms his frayed nerves. Though the last mission was chaotic, he managed to silence all the dangerous rumors surrounding his true identity. Opening a large chest of rare treasures, a brilliant red gemstone catches his eye. Finally, Julian has found the key to completing his broken moonlight sword using this beautiful scarlet gem. The idea came to him while studying the resonant stone. In this game world, every single item can naturally absorb magical mana. Since Imperial Stones boast the highest mana conductivity, he decides to copy that exact concept, imbuing his own magical energy directly into the stone to act as a buffer. This would create a bridge between swordsman and sword, safely channeling the energy. But the moment he touches the scarlet stone, it shatters into a dozen useless pieces. Julian sighs, realizing he must find a higher quality stone that can handle his massive mana flow. Just then, a soft knock at his door interrupts his deep thoughts. Expecting the butler, Julian grants permission to enter. The ever-loyal Lazarus steps inside, informing him that the Imperial Secretary's office demands a personal report from the captain himself. Stunned by the unexpected summons, Julian gets up to leave, telling Lazarus to clean up. And that's where we leave it, trust me. You're going to want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are about to jump into a wild fantasy story. First up, our main character gets a sudden summon from the Imperial Secretary. But just as he's leaving, Lazarus holds up some glowing redstone shards, asking what to do. Julian tells him to just toss them. Even though his aide hates throwing away such beautiful gems, he obeys the command anyway. Julian arrives at the Grand Imperial Secretary's office. Unlike the rundown shy building, this place is incredibly fancy. He introduces himself, asking to meet with Mr. Seaton Orby, but the attendant tells him the minister is busy and asks him to wait. Julian agrees easily. He figures whoever is inside must have a way higher status than him anyway. He steps into the elegant waiting room, a zone he could never access back in the game. Suddenly, something in the corner catches his eye, a lone sword. It is weird seeing a weapon just sitting around here. The blade is super plain and does not match this fancy room at all, yet it clearly belongs to a master. Engraved on the sheath are the words, "A strong body harbors a strong mind." Our hero feels like he's seen this somewhere before. Suddenly, a cold voice barks at him to step away from the weapon. But that voice is so familiar. He does not even need to turn around to know exactly who it is. It is Lady Ren Ronbell. She is from a legendary knight family, a direct student of Hayden Rake, and the exact girl whose life was cut short in the game by none other than the real Julian. Memories of her tragic fate flash through his mind as he stares at her. But since she is Hayden's star pupil, she might be his golden ticket to escaping this game. Ren Ronbell is a highly loyal student, possessing the raw talent to eventually surpass Julian. Everyone admires her absolute devotion to her master. Because of this, players absolutely loved her in the game, even unlocking a special wedding outfit for her. But now that our hero is trapped in Julian's body, all he gets from her is pure, deadly hatred. When she demands to know why he is touching her blade, he acts casual, saying he was just looking. To push her buttons, he comments on how careless she is with her master's weapon. She snaps back that Hayden hates carrying weapons anyway. Seizing the moment, Julian asks if her famous master is the one currently inside the meeting room. Deeply suspicious, she asks why he even cares. Julian just chuckles, and says he is curious, especially since that same man used to be his teacher too. Now pay attention here. Rina's hands shake with rage as she grabs her sword, demanding how he dares speak her master's name. But before a fight can break out, the office door swings open. An official calls Rina inside. She spins around instantly, giving Julian a freezing cold farewell, wishing to never lay eyes on his face again. But wait, the messenger stops them, announcing that Julian is also summoned. The air instantly turns icy. Hoping to ease the tension, our hero acts casual, saying they should be friends since they share a teacher. Cold as ever, she snaps back that they are nothing alike, warning him never to speak his name again. Julian is about to face his favorite character ever, but he's stuck in the body of the guy who betrayed him. Talk about stressful. Entering the grand office, they are greeted by a minister. He immediately starts kissing up, congratulating Julian for taking down that massive two-horned demon. Annoyed, Rina cuts him off and demands to know where her master went. Turns out Reich left the moment he assigned a new mission, one where Julian has to tag along. She is horrified, asking why on earth she has to work with a traitor. But the minister explains it is a highly dangerous mission, and since Julian is an Imperial force on site, he is the perfect partner. The target? Investigate the capital's slums. Julian sighs, asking why they have to deal with such a dirty, run-down place. Rumors say demons are lurking there, but the locals hate the crown and do not want royal knights around. So, it is the perfect job for two powerful fighters who are not directly tied to the throne. The slums are packed with outcasts from other lands who absolutely hate the Empire. Sending in neutral figures like them is the smartest way to keep the peace. If Ren outshines Julian, she'll easily secure the title of next Holy Swordsman. This mission is far from ideal, but as a loyal servant of the crown, Julian has no choice but to take it. Rina immediately flat-out refuses, a luxury Julian wishes he had right now. But the minister reminds her that her master personally chose this task for her. Going against his wishes would look terrible. After an awkward silence, she reluctantly backs down. Watching her tense up, Julian realizes that as Hayden's proud disciple, she will definitely try her absolute hardest to keep him on a tight leash during the entire mission. Right now, Julian lacks the raw power to fight back. If only he could find a magic stone that fits his mana. Just then, a sparkling gem on her necklace catches his eye. Can you believe what happens next? Julian asks about her necklace, and Rina coldly snaps that it is a moonstone. The glowing gem is exactly what he has been desperately searching for. Reaching out, Julian can feel the powerful magnetic aura of the stone. Furious, she slaps his hand away while he acts innocent. Even in those brief seconds, he felt a deep resonance with his own mana. The key to his power is right in front of him. Determined, Julian heads to a high-end jewelry shop, asking the owner if they have any moonstones in stock. But these gems are insanely rare, usually kept only by rich collectors. As Julian's face darkens with disappointment, the terrified merchant begins to sweat. The owner quickly promises to track one down. Relieved, Julian emphasizes just how badly he needs it, sending the poor merchant on a frantic nationwide search. When launch day arrives, the stone is still missing. Julian is stressed that she will notice his broken sword. Rina confidently marches ahead, but Julian quickly warns her that she's going the wrong way. She glares back. Because the slums are surrounded by a chaotic maze of illegal buildings, maps and street signs are completely useless here. Clutching her map, she snaps that she'd rather trust paper than a traitor, which actually makes sense. But the eastern slums are a total nightmare. Even the game's creators admitted this zone is insanely confusing. Stubbornly, she claims she won't fall for his tricks, fully convinced the traitor is trying to sabotage her chance at becoming the next Holy Swordsman. With absolute confidence, she declares that she is nothing like him. She will claim the title of Holy Swordsman, no matter what. Julian can only sigh, knowing she is in for a rude awakening. This mission is no joke. As they bicker over directions, Rina gets suspicious and asks if he's actually been here before. As a player, he knows this map inside out, but admitting that would blow his cover. When she demands to know how he's so sure of the path, he just smiles and blames it on intuition. Rina suggests they split up, but Julian reminds her they have strict orders to stick together unless, of course, she values her master's ego over the laws of the Empire itself. And that's where we leave them. She warns him to never speak her teacher's name again, her hands shaking with rage. Trust me, you and I need to see how they survive. Let's dive right back in. You and I can already see our proud warrior struggling as those whispers comparing her to Julian echo in her mind. If it were him, this mission would be over. But she refuses to doubt her destiny as the successor to the Holy Sword Master. Shaking off the thoughts, she spots a new problem. The signs on this path are completely messed up. Julian already noticed and asks what's wrong with a smirk. It's obvious the blonde is completely lost. The map in her hands doesn't match the signs at all, meaning they are going the wrong way. Before long, they are just walking in circles and ending up in the exact same place. Suddenly, a scarred man calls out to them, asking if they need directions. But this guy, Ben, isn't offering charity. He demands a drink in exchange for his help. Recognizing her famous family name, this shady character thinks he just hit the ultimate jackpot. Julian tries to introduce himself, but Ben couldn't care less. Our main character tries to place the guy's face, but since nothing stands out, he figures Ben is just some random, unimportant extra. Before showing them the way, Ben brings them to a local pub and orders a round. While wiping a glass, the bartender casually asks where they are from, clearly calculating how much to rip them off. Hearing their background, the keeper demands 30 nars for a single drink. Smirking, Ben remarks that life in the slums is a very expensive business. But as she reaches for her gold, our female lead says it's totally fine. To her, this price actually seems dirt cheap. The bartender's eyes instantly light up at the sight of her gold coins, proving she really is a clueless rich girl. Ben drags the owner into a corner, whispering to spike the drinks so they can rob them blind once they pass out. Naturally, the greedy bartender goes right to work, mixing the tainted brews. Moments later, 3 heavy mugs are set on the table. The blonde immediately raises hers to take a gulp, but before she can drink, Julian grabs her wrist. Now pay attention here, Julian calmly inspects the liquid, asking in a bone-chilling voice what exactly they slipped inside. Panic instantly sets in as Ben tries to play dumb. To test it, our hero pushes the mug toward the thug and orders him to take the first sip, threatening to force it down his throat. Annoyed, Renee snaps at him to stop, causing a dramatic scene. But the moment she utters his name, Ben freezes in recognition. Terrified, the bar owner whispers, demanding to know why Ben brought the Imperial family's loyal attack dog into their tavern. Sweating bullets, Ben plays it cool, knowing his backup is already here. These are the nastiest, most brutal thugs in the slums, and they have definitely noticed the trouble brewing at the bar. Ben reaches slowly into his coat, gripping a concealed blade to show he is ready for a bloody fight. But losing his patience, Julian calmly announces that their time is officially up. The moment our hero makes his move, the thugs leap from their seats and charge. But with blinding speed, Julian moves first, catching the lead attacker right by the throat. A second thug lunges from behind with a weapon, but Julian easily dodges the strike. In a flash, he dismantles the thugs one by one, leaving them completely clueless about what hit them. Rena finally draws her own blade, completely breaking the thugs' morale. With no courage left to fight, they back away. Standing tall, Julian warns them that whatever they want, making trouble in these slums is a massive mistake. Julian's sword rests directly against the thief's throat. Looking around, it is clear from the shifting crowd that everyone in this place belongs to Ben's gang. So, Julian demands Ben order them to stand down immediately. If not, things are going to get extremely messy, and someone's skull will end up shattered just like that beer mug. Ben shivers, his dark purple aura flaring in panic. When his men take a step forward, the terrified leader screams at them to fall back before they all get slaughtered. Terrified, the remaining goons flee the pub. Julian then offers a deal, answer a few questions, and he will ensure a safe surrender. After all, prison is much better than a shallow grave. But the choice belongs to Ben. Julian asks him point blank, would he rather surrender or die right here? Left with absolutely no cards to play, Ben wisely chooses to yield. Julian knew Ben was suspicious from day one, but learning he was tied to a major syndicate was a shock. On the bright side, they managed to extract some highly valuable intel. Rena looks completely defeated, blaming herself for dragging them into this mess. Watching her closely, Julian can tell she has lost her usual fiery confidence. She quietly asks how he knew the drink was poisoned. Let's pause for a second. Would you have figured it out, or would you have fallen for the trap just like her? The blonde admits she'd rather swallow her pride and learn, even from someone she hates. It is a surprisingly mature attitude, though Julian wishes she did not hate him quite so much. He explains that using his mana detection, he easily picked up on the thick wave of hostility radiating from both the spiked cup and the patrons around them. He actively pulsed his mana before even stepping inside, using it like a bat's radar to map out everyone's hostile energy. It is a complex technique typically reserved for top-tier mages, but with Julian's massive pool of power, it is a total walk in the park. Still curious, the blonde raises another point. Why did he waste time asking Ben about slum life instead of demanding the demon's secret location? She assumed their priority was hunting monsters, not social studies. But Julian smirks, confirming it is all connected, before asking if she actually understands the process of demonization. She explains it's a plague where remnants of Barbados infect living hosts to manifest as demons. But normally, humans are completely immune to this process. However, since these slums are protected by resonance stones, Actual monsters cannot breach the perimeter. That leaves only one terrifying option. The humans themselves are the hosts. Using his knowledge from his past life's game, Julian knows human possession is already running rampant here. But to Rina, this wild theory sounds totally impossible. He points out that 3 local families bought heavy fever medicine last week, a key early symptom of possession. Still, she remains highly skeptical as the sun begins to set. By morning, her mood brightens up. Pointing out they only have one last house to inspect, she happily notes that 0 signs of demons so far must mean they are in the clear. Julian knocks firmly on the door, and a pale man with bloodshot eyes opens it. While not definitive proof, his hostile, guarded stance screams that he is hiding a dark secret. Then, a familiar scent hits him. It's the same foul odor from the resonance stone ray, the bitter stench of pure demonic fluids. Keeping his cool, our hero introduces himself. But the moment the man realizes they belong to the Shut-Eyes Order, his face twists. He starts screaming at them to leave. But Julian catches the door, blocking it with his hand. With one heavy push, he shoves the man back and forces his way inside. Shocked by his aggression, Rina demands he explain himself. But in his mind, his gorgeous partner is far too naive, and that soft heart is going to get her killed one day. Renee is still panicking inside, pointing out they have absolutely no warrant to search this house. But Julian remains cool, knowing the Imperial Court only cares about results, not the rules. Their reports state the old man only lies with his young son, yet the table is clearly set for 3. Trembling, the man stammers that they simply have a guest over. So what do you and I make of this? Julian stirs the thick soup, realizing it is loaded with a sleeping potion meant to keep the dark guest behind that locked door quiet. Trust me, things are about to get bloody. You and I are diving straight into this madness as a stunned blonde stands speechless, while a panicked old man scrambles to unlock a heavy padlock, screaming for his son to escape. The door flies open as the father begs his son to flee, but in a flash, a massive shadow looms over him, snatching the screaming old man into the darkness. A massive demon was lurking behind that locked door all along. Reyna draws her blade, horrified to think a human became this beast, knowing she must slay it now. She aims a lethal strike right at the monster's eyes, but it swats her away with insane speed. Luckily, she recovers quickly, completely unharmed and ready to fight. Julian spots her weapon and realizes it is the blade Rina used before her awakening. No wonder she asked about mana earlier. Deciding this mission is too dangerous, the young man steps in front to shield her, but the irritated blonde snaps that she does not need any help. Drawing his sword, he casually claims, this is his job. After all, he cannot let a legendary swordsman's precious student get hurt. His moonlight sword is far from perfect, but hiding it now would just spark suspicion. As the beast lunges, our hero prepares to tear it apart. He triggers his newest skill to read movements and spot vital weaknesses. Instantly, light blinds the beast as our agile swordsman slides right between its massive legs. Laser-focused, Julian creates the perfect opening for Rina to strike, catching the giant monster completely off guard. The girl rushes forward with everything she has got, swinging her sword, but the alert demon blocks her incoming strikes. Julian yells for her to distract the beast, but she is barely holding on. Desperate, her eyes suddenly lock onto a strange object nearby. Now watch this. She hurls a jar of mushy food right into the demon's eyes, leaving its face filthy, bruised, and totally disoriented. Rina takes the chance to charge up a massive blast of energy. But while she is focusing, a gigantic hand swings out, brutally striking her down. The beast tracked her scent the second her guard dropped, shattering her plans to keep it distracted for her partner. Drowning in shame, she feels like she can never face her master again. But as the beast opens its massive maw of sharp teeth, Julian screams out for Miss Wren. She wonders what on earth he is doing, but he just smiles, praising her efforts as his eyes glow crimson, ready to strike. The confused demon lifts the girl with its giant arm, but our silver-haired hero spots a perfect opening and plunges his blade deep into the monster's massive body. The monster's grip finally weakens, dropping Rina to the ground. Breaking free, she immediately unleashes a heavy strike, leaving the beast doubly wounded from their combined attack. Julian stands firm, holding his epic pose until the giant's heavy body finally crashes to the floor. Rina is stunned that he took down a demon without even drawing his legendary moonlight sword. Seeing her shock, he just gives a smug grin, claiming it was too easy. Julian feels a surge of satisfaction, proud of how cool he sounded. A bit later, the duo finally reaches the Imperial Palace. He is incredibly relieved to finish another mission, confident his companion suspects nothing. But out of nowhere, the blonde breaks the silence, insisting he take all the credit. She feels she contributed absolutely nothing. He tries to argue, but honestly, she really did not do much against that beast. Rena glares and bluntly states she dislikes him. Julian just chuckles, noting she is not even trying to hide it now. Her master always preached responsibility with power. Let's pause here. While his strength is undeniable, his reckless behavior with civilians proves exactly why their master abandoned him for having zero restraint. He just smiles at her words, calling restraint a tool for cowards. Angered, she asks if he is calling her master a coward. He shrugs, reminding her he is no refined noble bound by rules. He simply wants her to realize that wild cards like him exist in this world too. Annoyed, she demands to know his point, but he quickly cuts her off, happily accepting all the mission points. Frustrated, she realizes she cannot figure him out, since restraint is for all knights, not just nobles. Suddenly, her uncle Ergen appears and offers her a lift. She hitches a ride, and her uncle immediately asks if the mission was exhausting, before casually bringing up the young man who accompanied her. He recognizes Julian, mentioning rumors that the Elders Association is scrambling over the boy's reckless antics, shocked that anyone would dare mess with them. He sneers, calling it typical branch family behavior, echoing Julian's words about living a life completely free of rules. Ergen warns his niece to stay away from such a dangerous person, claiming the boy is probably weak anyway. But before he can finish, she cuts him off, flatly denying it. She has no proof about his personality, but the boy is undeniably powerful. As painful as it is to admit, he is exceptionally strong. As the Golden Castle looms ahead, Julian meets with Captain Odwin, who demands to know what trouble he caused. Smirking, our hero plays completely innocent. His mind immediately jumps to the tavern or slum, folks reporting him for property damage and roughing people up. He was so focused on acting like a rogue that he totally ignored the consequences, but the captain just stares at him with a blank look. She reveals that Ben, a notorious criminal, turned himself in. Shaking with absolute fear, he kept uttering Julian's name, even though the boy's actual mission was only to hunt demons. Smirking, the young man suggests the thug probably just had a sudden crisis of conscience over his crimes. Though she knows he is responsible, she hands over his pay and tells him to beat it. Thrilled, he grabs the slip. Flat broke and remembering an urgent warning about his unpaid jewelry bill, he eagerly expects to finally clear his debt with this heavy payout. But the moment his eyes land on the paper, total shock. The payout shows 11,000 nars. Since 1 nar equals about $1, this is an insanely massive fortune for a single job. Even with Rena's share, the number is huge. But noticing his confusion, Odwin explains the base amount is actually docked for his long absence, leaving him totally speechless. Looking closer, he spots hefty deductions for registration and maintenance fees, likely tied to Julian's art hobby, leaving him with only 900 nars. And that is where we leave it. Trust me, this guy is terrible with money. Alright, you and I are about to see our main character face a massive problem. He desperately needs cash for a moonlight stone, so he asks his captain for extra missions. Odwin looks impressed, asking if he is totally broke. Sadly, she says there are no new quests, advising him to stop wasting money on useless trash. Our guy wouldn't even be this annoyed if he actually bought those things by choice. But then Odwin points out he could literally buy a whole castle by selling his art. This hits him like a total lightning bolt, the perfect emergency backup plan. All he needs to do is sell every single piece. The captain is left completely speechless by this weird reaction. Soon after, 2 mysterious hooded figures show up. These are Elders Association members, whispering about how Julian crushed a demon without even drawing his legendary moonlight sword. Aiden, one of the elders, flashes a sinister grin. Cutting the talk short, he heads to a nearby door to handle some business. Aiden immediately pulls his servant aside, asking if Julian truly destroyed that demon without his famous sword. The servant calmly confirms it, sweating buckets, as he calls Julian an absolute monster. He nervously asks if they should go ahead with their master's shady orders. Flashing a wicked look, Aiden commands him to do it, plotting to claim that monster for himself. Meanwhile, far away at the Ed Cosmos Art Gallery, people are milling around. Walking inside, our hero doubts anyone would actually buy these random trinkets. Suddenly, a short man greets him, introducing himself as Pio, the gallery's chief appraiser. He admits that while a request from the famous Sir Julian of the Shut Eyes is sudden, he is honored to help. Julian slowly pulls off the cloth covering the piece. Underneath is a stunning masterpiece of a golden wheat field. The appraiser's eyes instantly light up with intense curiosity. Peering through a magnifying glass, he notes the brushstrokes look exactly like the legendary Corsius Vincent. Julian leans in close, only for Pio to suddenly declare the art is a total fake. Our hero's eyes shoot wide open. He internally groans, wondering if his body's original owner just had terrible taste in art. He regrets not bringing another piece, assuming this entrance wall painting was a jackpot. But Pio quickly adds that he has never seen such a flawless forgery. He offers to buy it anyway, proposing a price of 1,000 nars despite it being fake. That is a decent chunk of change, but nowhere near enough for those stones. The appraiser leaves to fetch the contract, inviting Julian to look around while he waits. Right as he walks off, a familiar voice asks if he is really going to sign that contract. It is Eileen, claiming she is positive this painting is authentic. Now pay attention, because here is where the plot thickens. Surprised, Julian asks why she is so sure. Eileen explains she came for her cousin's exhibit but noticed a key detail. She insists no other painter in the entire empire could master oil paints like this. Getting suspicious, Julian looks closer as she points out the undeniable signature in the corner. Our main character bends down to inspect it, while Pio the appraiser gasps in fake shock, acting like he simply overlooked such a massive detail. That is it. Julian's patience snaps. His eyes burn with pure rage as he asks if the scammer tried to cheat him, sending a wave of sheer terror through the appraiser. Before blood is spilled, Eileen grabs Julian's hand, begging him to stay calm and not do anything reckless. She quickly reasons that even expert appraisers make honest mistakes. Shocked at his own violent urge and feeling everyone's eyes on them, Julian backs down and apologizes, but with a cold glare, he asks if the price is going up. The terrified appraiser drops into a deep bow, begging for mercy. He confesses that if it is a real Vincent, the gallery cannot possibly afford its priceless value. Julian chuckles coldly and pats the weeping man's shoulder, acting like having a priceless painting is a massive headache. Seeing his frustration, Eileen steps in with a lifeline. She reveals she knows a buyer obsessed with Corsius, which finally eases Julian's mind. But of course, she demands a little payback, laying down two specific conditions. First, she wants the appraiser let off the hook entirely. Second, she blushes deeply, asking him to help her with a personal favor since he is currently off duty. Julian agrees, shaking her hand to seal the deal. Flustered, she quickly snaps at him not to get any ideas. She is only doing this to repay her life debt. Deep in a dark corridor, a trembling soldier clutches a lantern to guide his steps. His legs shake violently as a bizarre sound echoes through the dark. Suddenly, glowing eyes peer from the darkness, scaring him witless. This is the exact story Eileen recounts to Julian as they stroll through the halls of the academy, explaining how professors ignored the attack. But reports of weird noises and attacked guards keep piling up. Confused, Julian asks what else this could possibly be besides some basic ghost. Eileen suspects a demon. Now, you and I both know this place is heavily shielded, but she fears they slipped in while the barrier stone was completely inactive. Just then, a smug black-haired guy named Hardy Godfrey interrupts, asking if she really had to beg for outside help. He casually greets Julian while completely ignoring her. Furious at the disrespect, Eileen glares, but Hardy claims she shouldn't bring random outsiders into academy business. She snaps back, saying she wanted someone actually competent to handle demons. Hardy sneers, mocking her for being from a lesser branch family. Eileen fires right back, reminding him that he barely passed his own thesis and should focus on studying. Losing his temper, he barks that low-status branch members need to learn their place, and the tension reaches a boiling point. Bored of their bickering, Julian decides to step in. He walks forward and draws his blade, leaving Eileen wondering if he is defending her honor or his own. With zero warning, the swordsman swings. Eileen and Hardy squeeze their eyes shut in terror, but only a tiny pebble drops onto Hardy's head. Julian actually sliced a hole in the ceiling, exposing a creepy red glow and a demon hiding inside. Reacting instantly, our hero slashes the beast, but a loud shriek cuts the fight short. Hardy loses his mind, crying that a monster is on his back. He looks over his shoulder only to see tiny, creepy red spheres with terrifying faces staring back. Julian dryly mocks him, saying demons do not care about family status. He suggests that if Hardy wants to live, he should probably start begging a low-born warrior like him for mercy right now. With one casual swing, our hero obliterates the threat. But right after, Eileen spots danger and warns Julian that something huge is dropping from the ceiling. Up above, the tiny monsters fuse into a massive, swirling cloud, morphing into a singular, demonic giant. The beast expands, casting a massive shadow across the corridor. Hardy whimpers in absolute terror, while Eileen is completely paralyzed by the sheer size of this newly formed colossus. Julian laughs, realizing their trick is just grouping up because they are weak alone. Flashing a wicked grin, he finds this highly entertaining. The four-eyed, rat-like beast opens its hideous maw and lunges straight for them. The beast lunges, but our hero dodges with ease. His blade flashes blue as we leave things here. Trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next. All right, you and I are jumping right into the action as Julian strikes back, slashing his sword across the monster's face. Every wound makes the beast shrink, shedding the tiny demons that formed it. Seeing this weakness, our hero plans his next move and stands face to face with his enemy. He strikes with absolute ruthlessness, swift and elegant. Eileen quickly conjures a magical barrier to block the flying debris. Within moments, the giant beast shatters into pieces, and Julian proudly sheathes his sword. With the battle over, the mage uses a golden gem to cast a mending spell on the damaged walls. She then turns to Julian, asking how he spotted those hidden demons. Julian remembers the strange colored aura he saw behind Hardy using his emotion-detecting eyes. He just smiles, keeping that secret to himself. Eileen admits she thought Julian despised anyone from a collateral bloodline, but now thinks he might be different. Julian looks totally baffled, asking where she got that idea. She reminds him of that harsh insult from their past. Defending the collateral families now, she says, makes him look like the boy she actually respected back in school. Julian silently realizes his old, arrogant words really hurt her back then. Meanwhile, Eileen notes that nobody dares mistreat Julian simply because everyone is terrified of his power. But for her, facing constant disrespect just for her bloodline is a daily battle. Julian replies that noble or not, red blood runs in everyone's veins, admitting his past insults were uncalled for. This indirect apology catches Eileen completely off guard, making her face turn bright red. Shyly, she thanks him, leaving our hero totally confused. She quickly covers it up, claiming it's just for his help in the fight. That explanation makes way more sense to him. With the wall fully repaired, their task here is finally finished. Since Julian kept his end of the bargain, the young mage prepares to introduce him to the wealthy art buyer. Next, we find Julian in a gorgeous office filled with levitating spellbooks, where a thrilled man gushes over seeing the legendary painting up close. This rare masterpiece was painted by the late artist Corsius. The man drooling over it is Alram Chi, vice director of the Academy. He has an incredible eye for art, finding profound beauty in a piece that looks totally ordinary to Julian. Alram analyzes every single brushstroke with intense passion, leaving Julian secretly impressed by the man's wild imagination. The vice director explains that the painting's lonely atmosphere was the artist's way of channeling his younger brother's deep personal suffering. The brother had funded the painter's life, and a final letter revealed this canvas held all of his agonizing grief. Sipping his tea, Julian just nods, pretending to understand the artistic depth. But using his special vision, Julian spots a bright orange aura radiating from Alram, that is the color of denial. It proves the director is deeply connected to this mystery and highly suspicious of our hero. Anxious, Julian wonders if something is wrong with the art, but that feels highly unlikely. Eileen and Alram both confirmed its authenticity, so the piece is real. What is making him so wary? Julian breaks into a cold sweat as tension rises. Alram breaks the heavy silence, bluntly asking Julian if he actually knows anything about this art, or if he is just a desperate kid looking for a quick payout. He is willing to buy it, but wants to negotiate with a true connoisseur. Julian realizes he is about to get lowballed if he does not act fast. Taking a massive gamble, Julian plays his hand, revealing he knows Corsius died shortly after completing this exact painting. He explains the painting is legendary because it is tied directly to the artist's final breath. Alram bursts into laughter, confirms the theory, and apologizes for doubting Julian's impressive knowledge. With respect earned, the real negotiation begins. Alram raises 4 fingers, offering 400,000 nars. It is a fortune, but Julian decides to push his luck for more. He argues that posthumous masterpieces are priceless gems, meaning the price tag should reflect that supreme rarity. Pay attention here, because Alram instantly raises his offer to 500,000 nars. This massive jump leaves our main character completely speechless. Since nars are valued like dollars, this painting is worth $500,000. Alram calls out to Julian, who is busy calculating his new fortune. Grinning, Julian agrees to the deal, thanking the vice director for recognizing the art's true value. The previous gallery was right, they never could have matched this insane price. Julian's gamble paid off big time. Moments later, a knock sounds at the door as Eileen enters, asking if she was summoned. Admiring his shiny new painting, the director invites her to sit, asking about the hallway commotion. Eileen reassures him that the threat has been dealt with. Pouring her some tea, he asks if she faced any real danger. Thinking of Hardy, she decides to keep that close call a secret and plays it cool. The director apologizes anyway, then lowers his voice. He asks her to keep this confidential, suspecting the notorious Aurora Society orchestrated the attack. Shocked, the mage asks why they would target the school. Alram lacks answers, but notes they likely struck the exact second the resonance stone failed. Filled with growing dread, The young mage squeezes her teacup tightly. Now, I know what you're thinking. A demon-worshipping cult targeting an academy is bad news, but the director promises he has beefed up security to keep everyone safe. He points out she had Julian's help earlier. Hearing that name, Eileen's eyes widen as she remembers her scheduled meeting to discuss the art deal. Eileen mentions she wanted to thank him, but it seems the hasty swordsman has already vanished from the premises. Halram confirms Julian ran off immediately after getting paid, apparently planning to buy up a bunch of rare moonlight stones. This news leaves Eileen completely stunned. She bolts out, leaving the director musing about how busy everyone is. Arriving at the jewelry shop, the jeweler bows, apologizing profusely. Irritated, Eileen reminds him of his promise to keep stock, but the jeweler explains Julian bought everything. Worse, getting a new shipment will take a very long time. Desperate for her research thesis, Eileen bursts into tears, totally lost. Meanwhile, our main character is walking away with a massive, satisfied grin. He visits the Twilight Flame Forge, asking a gruff blacksmith to forge a spectacular sword embedded with the gems, one that literally glows with moonlight. The angry smith scoffs, calling the design a useless piece of decorative art, refusing to damage his pride. But Julian insists this weapon is meant for real combat. Slamming his fist, the smith roars that this design is no weapon. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see if he actually builds this beast. Let's dive into a story where our main character is about to prove everyone wrong. The blacksmith tells Julian he doesn't make luxury toys, only weapons for real soldiers. Calmly, Julian says he's engraving legendary monomeridians onto the blade, but Ruger snaps back, calling him a fool since nobody can fight with a sword made of gems. Just as Julian is thinking it over, a young woman steps up and apologizes. She explains they put their name on every weapon they forge. If Julian's fancy gemstone sword snaps, their hard-earned reputation goes down the drain with it. Julian sighs, wanting his blade forged in the same place as Hayden's legendary weapon. Still, he offers a handshake, saying he gets the risk, but guarantees this sword will never break. Ruger points a finger right in his face, asking if he actually believes that nonsense. Confident as ever, Julian tells him yes, challenging the blacksmith to test his skill if he doubts him. He slams a heavy bag of gold onto the table, demanding they forge it, promising to pay way more than the usual price. The deal is simple. If the sword snaps during the test, Julian loses his gold and gems. The blacksmith nods in agreement, warning him that if it shatters, the entire deal is dead and forgotten. A few days later, Julian returns to see his brand new sword. The shop's master smith had worked day and night to craft this masterpiece. The assistant, still doubting, asks if this thing can even cut. But the moment Julian grabs the hilt, his perfect sword technique activates, and he knows he is ready. On the day of the trial, a huge crowd gathers under the bright sun. The young woman offers to chase the onlookers away, but Julian just smiles and says it's fine. Ruger steps forward with a smug look, showing off the target for the test. This isn't normal armor, but a solid, 1 centimeter thick block of pure steel. Now here's where it gets interesting. Julian has to slice right through it. He laughs, loving the challenge. While the blacksmith secretly admits the kid lives up to his reputation. Still, he doubts this gemstone blade can survive the impact. But as Julian grips it, he feels a sudden surge, like a pathway of pure mana forming through the metal. Stunned by the incredible feeling, Julian moves like lightning, unleashing a devastating slash against the steel block that leaves the entire crowd dead silent. Not a single scratch on the blade. The assistant is speechless. Julian is actually channeling the overflowing mana, binding it to the sword to keep the energy spinning. This is the true power of the Moonlight Sword. With zero effort, the heavy steel armor they painstakingly prepared is instantly shattered into tiny pieces. With a smug smirk, Julian looks at the stunned blacksmiths and asks them what now. The radiant blue energy coming off his blade is blindingly bright, and just like that, his incomplete sword skill evolves into the legendary Moonlight Sword. Proud of his brand new skill, Julian smiles as endless mana floods the weapon. Yet, the blade remains absolutely flawless. Its powerful, majestic glow lights up the area, proving our main character has officially completed his ultimate quest. Looking totally embarrassed, Ruger steps up and admits he completely underestimated him. Julian sheathes his weapon, smiling because actions always speak louder than words. Ruger warns him to be careful, since their reputation is tied to that blade. Julian promises to use it wisely as Reich inspects the shattered steel armor from a distance. Examining the broken pieces, he notices the cuts are incredibly clean. Feeling uneasy, he wonders what Julian is planning, while Rena stands beside him asking questions. The master says he can still feel the boy's lingering aura on the metal, amazed by a sword path so perfectly designed for pure, effortless slicing. Reich wishes he had seen the cut happen live. Noticing Rena's tense look, he asks if Julian did anything, curious about how their recent mission together actually went. Looking slightly disappointed, the girl admits her partner was undeniably strong. But Reich presses for details, asking if she noticed anything weird about him. Confused, she repeats the question back to him. Her master looks her dead in the eye and asks if Julian could be working with the notorious Dawn Society. Meanwhile, our main character is absolutely thrilled with his massive success. His glowing sword radiates insane power, but inside, Lee worries he is slowly turning into the real Julian day by day. He has to remember his ultimate goal of returning to his own world. He cannot stay trapped inside a video game character's body forever. But getting back home will not be easy. For the game to reach its final ending, Hayden must successfully stop the resurrection of the ancient demon god. Plus, he has to prevent the original Julian from killing Hayden. Right now, the heretical Dawn Society is about to appear, desperate to resurrect the evil Barbados. This makes them the ultimate enemies of Hayden and Renner, especially since the cult brutally murdered the young girl's father. I know what you're thinking. Why not just team up with Hayden? Well, that is way easier said than done. To gather intel, Julian wonders if he should join the cult, but has no clue how. Suddenly, his danger instincts scream at him. Not sure if he's paranoid or if his skill actually activated, the young man stands completely on guard. He calls out to the darkness, telling the stalker their mana was detected. As a figure steps out of the shadows, Julian laughs, instantly recognizing the woman. He asks if they have met before. Standing there is a green-haired girl with pink eyes and a silent man behind her. Julian remembers her perfectly. She is Eleanor de Michichel, a deadly dark mage and bishop of the cult. He also recognizes her companion, both sworn enemies of Hayden Reich. She giggles, realizing the kid saw right through her disguise. Showing her true face, she compliments him, while Julian acts like he knows exactly why they came. She grins, saying that makes this easy, and demands his final answer. But honestly, our main character has absolutely no idea why they are here. He is totally bluffing. To buy time, Julian says he needs to think, but the mage refuses, reminding him that he was the one who reached out to join them first. Surprised that things have gone this far, he realizes that cleaning up the original Julian's massive messes is becoming a daily routine. Julian knows that in every single game route, he is destined to be defeated by Hayden. He is supposed to join the cult for demon powers eventually, but it certainly doesn't need to happen right this second. So, the young man boldly tells them there shouldn't be a strict deadline for his decision. The mage agrees but warns him that hesitating makes him look like a spy trying to destroy their society, especially since he is known as the imperial family's loyal little lapdog. Realizing she is highly suspicious, Julian knows joining now is incredibly risky. If the Empire finds out, it is game over, and a fast track to the absolute worst ending. And, trust me, if Hayden finds out, they will fight to the death, and the main character will never escape this game. We are definitely in for a wild ride next. Alright, you and I are about to watch our main character try to survive one of the tightest spots yet. He is frantically racking his brain to escape, but LLNR warns him that backing out now is not an option. The mysterious cloaked figure steps forward, growling that escape will not be that easy. This masked fighter is a senior officer, a high-ranking combat specialist far superior to any normal knight. Removing his hood, he finally reveals his true face. He introduces himself as Pelor, the legendary Iron Fists, threatening to crush Julian if he hesitates. Pointing to a deep scar on his face, he snarls that he can still feel the stinging pain left behind by the swordsman. Our hero sighs internally, realizing this is just another angry victim of the original Julian he has to clean up after. To keep up his disguise, he casually apologizes, claiming he never remembers the weaklings he beats up. This sends Iron Fists into an absolute rage, making our main character realize he might be playing his role a little too well. With terrifying speed, the powerhouse vanishes, instantly reappearing right behind our swordsman. He sneers, wanting to see just how long this cocky attitude is going to last. Right then, his exceptional swordsman's skill kicks in, allowing him to barely block the massive fist. But in his rush, he accidentally grabbed his basic iron blade instead of the powerful moonlight sword. Muscle memory is a pain, but right now, he just needs to survive and buy some time. The clash intensifies as Julian desperately parries a relentless storm of heavy blows. He tries launching his own counterattacks, but the monster easily dodges his slashes. Sensing the rising danger, our hero realizes he urgently needs a moment to breathe. But the enemy refuses to let up, charging forward with blinding speed to deliver a devastating, aura-charged strike. The punch connects cleanly, blasting our protagonist backward through the air. The impact is brutal, nearly knocking him out cold. As Pelor laughs and mocks him for losing to a weakling, Pay attention here. Our hero is secretly reaching for his ultimate weapon. Rage boils inside him. He is sick of suffering for crimes he never committed. Across from him, Iron Fists looks genuinely shocked that the kid is even standing after that hit. His boiling anger hits its absolute peak. Suddenly, his legendary open eyes skill triggers, wrapping his entire body and blade in a dark, terrifying scarlet energy. The onlookers immediately feel the sudden, heavy shift in the air. Realizing that strange glowing sword is the source of this terrifying pressure, Peller decides he must shatter it immediately. Before the brute can even react, Julian closes the gap in a flash and slashes forward. The lightning-fast strike catches Pelor completely off guard, tearing a deep wound into his arm. Julian just stands there wearing a cold, menacing grin. Furious, Iron Fists lunges forward with a desperate, whistling punch that barely grazes our hero's cheek. But Julian effortlessly dodges, slicing his opponent again before the fist can even land. Screaming in pure agony, the bleeding warrior desperately demands he back away while priming another attack. However, the swordsman moves so fast he looks like a complete blur. Easily dodging the desperate strikes, he drives a brutal counterattack directly into the giant's midsection. Julian's combat prowess is absolutely terrifying. To his bleeding opponent, he looks like a literal monster, those glowing red eyes filled with pure dominance. Slicing through flesh and seeing the absolute terror in his enemy's eyes actually feels amazing to Julian. After all, his legendary open eyes ability only reaches its peak during intense emotional highs. Broken and bleeding, Peller throws away his pride and desperately begs for mercy. But the dark side effect of Julian's skill is taking over, turning him incredibly aggressive. Let's pause here. This is where we see just how dark this skill really is. He refuses to stop, slicing his opponent until he's satisfied, mockingly grabbing the defeated fighter by the hair. The man begs for his life but meets only a cold stare. Suddenly, soft hands gently touch Julian's neck as Eleanor asks if that is enough. Her calming presence makes his dark power fade away. Peller gasps for air, barely surviving the brutal beatdown. Returning to his senses, Julian is deeply horrified by his own violent actions. While the skill normally alters a user's mind, Julian's aggression goes completely off the charts. Sensing the danger, he tries to play it off by blaming Pelor, and Eleanor jokingly agrees with her wand raised. But our hero snaps back, pointing out she just watched despite knowing his power. As she heals Pelor with her magic, she casually admits she wanted to see them fight, and now respects Julian even more. Activating her Mark of Beauty skill, the charming mage suggests they form an alliance, pointing out he literally has nothing to lose. Resting a hand on her shoulder, our hero agrees but says he needs time to think it over. As he walks past Pelor, the defeated fighter physically shakes with terror. Annoyed that her charms failed, she turns to the battered fighter, asking for his thoughts on the battle. Peller weakly admits that Julian is far more dangerous than any of them expected. She notes that those amnesia rumors are definitely fake, but warns him to keep it a secret from the other bishops so she can use this juicy information to her own advantage. Blushing under her magical charm, Peller quickly nods in agreement. Clearly, her seductive powers work on everyone except Julian. Back in his room, our hero is incredibly frustrated. He sits in deep thought, knowing he survived only because of that crazy skill. But relying on such an unstable power is a massive gamble, and this Dawn society is proving to be a real threat. Trapped in a corner, he has no idea what to do next. If he joins this shady society, Hayden will execute him, ending any hope of returning home. But exposing them means getting assassinated by their elite killers. Closing his eyes, Julian desperately reviews his options. After weighing the risks, he decides that playing along and joining the Dawn Society might actually be his safest bet. This allows him to gather crucial intel from the inside, stop the Demon King from returning, and finally find a way back to his own world. Soon after, Julian arrives at Genel Monastery, the grand headquarters of the massive Sun God Church. He casually strolls right through the crowded main hall of the Holy Temple. The religious crowd quickly grows nervous, seeing a notorious non-believer walking around, casting hateful glares his way. One follower even whispers that the boy might be here to assassinate someone. A sweating priest nervously steps forward to ask what brings him to their holy sanctuary. Julian calmly responds that he is here to see the Supreme Abbot, sending the poor cleric into an absolute panic since no visitors were scheduled. Just then, a quiet nun approaches and offers to guide him deeper inside. It seems she was specifically sent by the mysterious high-ranking figure Julian came to meet. While Julian tries to read her face, she notes he arrived earlier than planned. Dropping her clever disguise magic, Eleanor reveals herself, teasing that she doubted he would even show up. Quietly impressed by the seamless illusion magic, Julian greets her. He remarks how bold it is for the secret Dawn Society to hide their entire base right inside this massive, holy monastery. The pair finally stops before a massive set of double doors. With a dead serious expression, she warns him that the Archbishop is waiting inside and demands total respect. Julian playfully scoffs at the warning, though he can tell she is way more tense than before. He realizes her extreme caution is because the absolute leader of their society is sitting just beyond those doors. As they step inside, the entire chamber erupts into quiet whispers. The masked figure sitting on the grand throne demands to know if he is truly Julian, wearing an arrogant smile that demands absolutely zero respect. And that's where we leave things as Eleanor demands he bow before the Archbishop, a former peasant named Tenoran who was chosen by a legendary relic. You and I will have to wait to see if he actually kneels. You and I are about to see our stubborn main character refuse to kneel. Eleanor is completely shocked, demanding to know why he won't prove his loyalty to join them. But this swordsman has zero interest in blind faith. He is only here to establish a strictly business partnership. Julian knows he will never become a true believer, so playing bold is his only option. With absolute confidence, he declares that they want his influence just as much as he needs their god's power. The cultists gasp at his sheer audacity, but Tenelon quickly orders everyone to shut their mouths. He waves off the drama, stating that real partners do not need useless rituals, and dismisses everyone except Eleanor and Julian. The guards hesitantly retreat, leaving them alone. The Archbishop looks at Julian and chuckles, saying he definitely lives up to his cocky reputation. Unexpectedly, he steps forward, slaps a hand on Julian's shoulder, and smiles. He actually loves the attitude and tells Julian to follow him for a little surprise. As they walk, Tenoran explains that this high-security vault holds their sacred relic, off-limits to anyone below a bishop. The old man admits he simply cannot let someone like Julian walk away. Letting him leave now would make them mortal enemies. But keeping Julian as a close ally? Now, that is a highly profitable prospect for the church. So, to seal this alliance, he offers Julian an instant promotion to bishop, unlocking the full backing of the powerful Dawn Society. Eleanor is floored by the offer, but her boss snaps that Julian deserves this treatment and she must never question him again. Humiliated, the young mage can only bow her head in silence. Now pay attention here, because things get wild. The Archbishop asks if Julian is satisfied, then offers to show our main character something truly insane since he came all this way. Inside a massive chamber, a bizarre chalice overflows with a glowing crimson liquid. Julian instantly recognizes the legendary sacred relic, the very artifact that raised a random peasant to lead the entire society. This artifact can awaken the dormant power of Barbados, turning it into physical reality. The Archbishop reaches toward the chalice, pulling out the red fluid and molding it into a demonic horn right before Julian's eyes. With just a wave of his hand, Tenoran conjures a genuine demon horn, the source of a monster's raw strength. Our hero has never seen a horn created out of thin air. Realizing the artifact's true terrifying potential, he gets lost in thought until Tenoran snaps him back to reality. The swordsman smiles, saying he came to the perfect spot because this exact horn is the final piece he needs. Tenoran flashes a shady grin and generously tells the young man he can keep his new creation. Julian accepts the gift but remains highly suspicious. This powerful object was handed over far too easily, especially since creating a single horn requires sacrificing multiple high-level demons. Even with the massive cost, the raw power it grants is absolutely ridiculous. Tenoran is dying to see what Julian can do with it, wondering if he will eventually surpass the legendary Holy Swordsman. But Julian knows the dark truth behind this massive boost. Humanoid demons are born from these very horns. You don't just borrow demon power, you eventually turn into one, and Julian wants no part in that. Still deeply anxious, Eleanor steps up to the Archbishop to whisper a warning. Quietly, the mage warns him that gifting the horn this early is a massive mistake. She points out that Julian has not even fully sworn his allegiance to their cause. But here is the thing, they forgot who they are dealing with. Julian overhears every whisper about how the other members will react to giving away their ultimate source of power. He steps in, returning the horn and stating that he did not come here to take their treasures. The Archbishop laughs, remarking that the young swordsman is far more polite and considerate than expected. He notes it will take time to completely win Eleanor over, so in the meantime, he has a tiny favor. The special stones needed for crafting horns must be harvested from rare three-horned demons. Tenoran tasks Julian with hunting these beasts down. Hunting such high-level targets would normally alert the Imperial Court, but the Archbishop promises that his connections will keep everything quiet. A few days later, Julian stands at a bustling train station as a massive locomotive screeches to a halt. The old man made him a bishop instantly, only to immediately send him on a dangerous demon hunt. On top of that, the society clearly has high-ranking spies hidden deep inside the imperial court itself. Calling them a mere cult is an understatement. They operate like a shadow nation. Sitting across from Julian on the train, Heron happily remarks on how convenient modern travel has become. The duo is traveling to Bernardin, home of the legendary Sun God Church's Grand Festival. Heron is heading there to represent the prestige of the noble Crier family. To break the icy silence, he awkwardly suggests that Julian join the festival once his hunt is over. Julian plays along, promising to drop by if time allows, though he can tell the noble kid is still absolutely terrified of him. The train rolls into the station, and they part ways. But before he leaves, Heron delivers a warning. Do not mess with Margaril. That powerful man was tight with the Highlands house, the family Julian totally wiped out. Julian sighs, annoyed by yet another messy problem inherited from this body's original owner. Still, he pushes it aside. His absolute priority right now is hunting down this demon. Later, a furious red-haired official glares at Julian, demanding he delay his mission. Sweating from the sudden block, Julian asks for an explanation. The redhead reveals they have completely locked down the Piran forest, keeping it strictly for church members preparing for the festival. Julian warns him that a dangerous three-horned demon is lurking inside, threatening to destroy the entire celebration. The official scoffs, claiming that if the beast hasn't attacked yet, it won't. So Julian's eyes narrow as he coldly asks if the man dares to defy direct orders from the imperial court. The redhead counters that this is exactly why he wants a simple delay. The festival is their city's pride and joy, and canceling it for a dormant demon is completely out of the question. He bluntly warns Julian that if his hunt ruins the grand event, the young swordsman will be the one taking all the blame. He smugly suggests Julian take a week to relax and enjoy the sights. Julian just stares back with cold amusement. Suddenly, a sweet voice echoes through the room as a cute little girl runs through the door. Little Tarina is looking for her father, Orinal. She curiously walks over to Julian, asking about the handsome stranger. Terrified, Orinal panics, telling her to get away from Julian and get behind him right now. Julian is dumbfounded that the man actually expects him to hurt a kid. Reading Orinal's emotional aura, it glows bright purple, radiating absolute, paralyzing terror. Ending the tense talk, Julian tells him they will finish this later and walks out, leaving them in peace. He steps into the hallway, runs a hand through his hair, and sighs. His two companions are waiting outside, asking how it went. Julian tells them Orinal is incredibly stubborn, making it impossible to stop them from delaying the hunt. One of them asks if they should recall their hidden scouts from the forest, but Julian tells them to keep their scouts in position. And that is where we leave it, because Julian knows Bernardin is where players meet their first three-horned demon. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are dealing with a beast that could turn this entire festival into absolute chaos, because more horns mean insane power. On top of its unique traits, this monster has a name. Meet Hamelane, a three-horned parasitic beast that reshapes its territory into a massive maze. Step into its domain, and you are instantly trapped in a toxic swamp. Even if you survive that, it unleashes a brutal mental assault, making defeat almost guaranteed. Meanwhile, our main character just sips his coffee and waits. He knows Hamlin has already launched its strike, and Sir Orinal will soon come begging for his help. So, for now, he simply enjoys a brief moment of quiet. Out of nowhere, a messenger boy bursts in, saying the commander needs him at the mansion right away. He bows and apologizes, but Julian just smiles. He knew this was coming. Shaking with fear, the leader waits. Our main character arrives, and the desperate commander explains that his daughter Teresa fell asleep last night and simply will not wake up. He admits the doctors are clueless, and other kids are falling into the same deep sleep. Hearing this, Julian realizes the demon has already made its first move. It makes no sense for healthy children to suddenly slip into comas like this. In sheer desperation, Sir Orinal shouts that a demon must be behind this nightmare. Julian confirms his fears, explaining that the culprit is a beast named Hamlin lurking in the Piran forest. It releases spores that brainwash living creatures into loyal puppets. While adults are immune, it knocks children out cold. Julian warns that time is running out for the commander's daughter, driving the panicked father to grab him by the collar. He screams that he does not care about the festival anymore. He just wants this beast dead. When Julian asks if he will do whatever it takes, the begging father promises anything. Anything? Julian asks coldly. Even if it hurts the city of Bernardin itself? Sir Orinal gulps, trembling. With his back against the wall, he holds on to the young warrior. The commander drops to his knees, begging and taking full responsibility. Hearing this, our main character just smiles. Still smiling, the young warrior promises to destroy the beast Hamlin once and for all. Soon, his soldiers are pouring buckets of oil all over the forest, though some question if destroying this beautiful place is truly necessary. Julian explains that only an idiot would hold back against a threat like this, but the soldier is still stunned, asking if they are really burning it all. Watch closely here, this is an absolute pro move. Julian explains they are not fighting Hamlin in its maze, they are going to incinerate it, using the easiest cheat code from his game. The soldier worries about Sir Orinel getting angry, but our hero replies that the leader already chose his people over the festival. With a grin, he tells them to light it up. Julian walks away, giving the final order to start the fire. As the flames spread, the beast awakens with a deafening roar of pure rage, emerging from the inferno and making everyone tremble in fear. Our main character orders everyone to back off, declaring he will take down the monster completely solo. The soldiers gasp in confusion, wondering how he can survive without backup. He demands they stay out of it, warning that they will only get in his way as he draws his sword. With absolute confidence, Julian strides straight into the blazing fire toward the monster. He chuckles at the searing heat, bracing himself as he stands face to face with the terrifying, three-horned beast, Hamlin. Enraged, the monster swings its massive claws, shattering the ground in a burst of destruction. Calm and elegant, Julian coats his lunar sword with concentrated mana, unleashing a brilliant aura of pure, vibrating energy. The agile warrior charges straight into the danger. Hamlin freezes, shocked to find its strength heavily drained by the blazing heat, while Julian laughs and boasts that the fire worked. The demon glares, and Julian declares victory. But hold on, we definitely did not see this coming. The beast explodes in brilliant flames, leaving our hero completely frozen and confused. Feeling dizzy, he covers his nose. He forgot about the monster's hidden weapon, Hamlin's toxic pollen, which triggers instant hypnosis, nausea, and severe mental confusion in its victims. The demon uses this opening to recover, but our hero suddenly starts laughing as he raises his weapon. He shouts through the fire, asking if it really thought that would work. Julian is completely immune to the pollen. Thanks to his highly complex mind, the mental attack fails entirely, prompting a furious, earth-shaking scream from Hamlin that rattles the forest. Preparing to strike, Julian chuckles, joking that he is already crazy enough without any pollen. He leaps high into the air, bringing down a sword pulsing with devastating mana. With a blinding, spinning slash, he floods the entire forest with a brilliant blue light. A massive explosion ripples through the trees, leaving the demon split clean in half on the ground. The warrior looks down to ensure the threat is gone. His soldiers rush over, deeply worried, but he reassures them as he sheathes his sword, standing victoriously over the beast's mangled corpse. Far away, Sir Orinel stares anxiously out of his window at the burning forest. Back at the mansion, Julian calmly thanks him for his full cooperation. He adds that the imperial court will surely respect his brave choices. Showing zero remorse, he then asks if the commander's daughter is awake, and the relieved father confirms she is recovering. Julian casually pulls out a necklace, calling it a gift for the little girl. The father freezes in absolute horror, realizing the necklace is made directly from Hamlin's dead remains. Our hero explains that since she was the first to react to the pollen, she must have high mana sensitivity and could become an incredible mage. Bewildered by the gesture, the father asks why Julian is being so generous when they do not even get along. Smiling, our main character simply says that more mages are always welcome. When Orinel suspiciously asks what he wants in return, Julian insists it is just a small thank you for his cooperation. The commander continues to tremble with suspicion, terrified that Julian knows about his secret ties to the dethroned royal family. Julian thanks him one last time and walks out, leaving the leader terrified and confused. Still, staring at the cursed artifact in disbelief, the commander finally takes it to his recovering daughter. The girl cheerfully greets her father as he celebrates her recovery, handing her the gift to help her heal. To his surprise, the young girl instantly falls in love with the bizarre necklace. Still deeply worried about Julian's motives, he prepares to write to the elders. The association had ordered him to stall Julian's progress, but with his daughter's life on the line, he had no other option. He silently prays the Highlands will forgive him for choosing his family over revenge. Meanwhile, the train speeds away from Bernardin Station. Sitting inside his carriage, Julian holds a small box, deeply relieved to have secured Hamlin's heart. He carefully opens the lid, feeling it incredibly powerful, surging aura radiating from the artifact. The spirit stone glows with immense magical energy. As he stares at it, he contemplates his next move, realizing that giving it to the Dawn Society would definitely win their absolute trust. But deep down, he knows there might be a much better use for this power. Suddenly, the conductor announces their arrival at Rondrin Station. Noticing a crowd of passengers boarding, he quickly hides the precious item away. Just then, the clicking of elegant high heels echoes down the aisle as a mysterious woman takes the seat right next to him. She looks at him in utter shock, and as their eyes meet, he realizes it is Rena. Quickly slamming the box shut, Julian knows she cannot see what is inside, because if Hayden finds out, trust me, we are in for a wild ride next time. You and I are starting this adventure with our protagonist hiding a suspicious box of demon remains behind his suitcase. Talk about tense. But then, a very familiar face corners him. Julian chuckles, while the noblewoman stares at her seat, completely stunned by his sudden appearance. He casually asks if she's wondering why he's there, and she can only nod in pure disbelief. He explains he was just on a mission in Bernardin. Then, he playfully points out a piece of clothing slipping from her suitcase, teasing that she must have had an exciting trip herself. Rena snaps back, telling him to mind his own business. Julian laughs, relieved that she hasn't noticed his secret box yet. But her next words instantly shatter his temporary peace. With a sharp, threatening look, she mutters that something feels off. Julian quickly tries to mask his rising anxiety, asking what's wrong. She calls this coincidence highly suspicious, jokingly asking if he's stalking her. Breathing a sigh of relief, he explains he didn't even book this. The Imperial Secretariat handled all of his travel plans. He playfully suggests that maybe she's the one stalking him, making her yell in outrage. Sensing danger, our hero quietly decides to move that cursed box to a safer spot. Julian kicks himself, realizing he never should have taken the box out of his bag in the first place. Then, out of nowhere, Rena zeroes in on it, asking if it's important. Her piercing gaze locks onto him, totally shattering his cool facade. She points out he's been constantly touching the box, making him realize she's been watching his every move this whole time. He forced out a laugh, claiming it's just a jewelry box. Rena looks completely unconvinced, mocking him by asking if he's still deeply obsessed with shiny, expensive trinkets. She brings up a rumor about his jewel-forged sword, and he just laughs it off. But watch closely here, because a sudden, violent jolt from the train sends that secret box flying right out of his hands. Furious, Julian wonders what's going on as a voice over the speaker announces the journey has been halted by a sudden, intense storm. The dark artifact tumbles out, rolling straight to Rena's feet. Julian can only watch in absolute horror as his cover is blown. Cautiously, the noblewoman picks up the strange, dark stone. Rena hands it back, dryly noting that the jewel looks pretty banged up for someone who claims to love them so much. Talk about a lucky break. Julian is completely baffled that she didn't recognize a literal spiritual jewel. Trembling, he quickly packs it away with a polite thanks. They make awkward small talk, though his heart is still hammering against his chest. She claims she didn't enjoy his company at all, but he honestly thanks her for keeping him occupied. Just then, an attendant arrives to escort her back to her personal carriage. But before he can slip away, Rena suddenly calls out to him. Julian freezes, desperately trying to keep his nervous voice steady. Blushing, she thanks him for saving her back in the village, claiming it's from one swordswoman to another. Julian just chuckles, saying there's no need since they're both still just student warriors. She coldly reminds him that he was actually expelled. He tells her not to be so harsh as he walks off. Finally, her carriage departs, and a voice asks if he enjoyed Bernardin. Captain Odwin asks the question, and Julian laughs, saying the mission wasn't exactly a vacation. Looking at her desk, he jokingly asks about the massive mountain of paperwork. He playfully mocks her, saying she must have had the real party here. Enraged, the captain screams, demanding who he thinks caused this massive mess in the first place. Julian just laughs and calls her lazy. She snaps that it's entirely his fault, furious that he literally set a pier and a whole forest on fire. Julian just smiles, arguing that desperate situations require some pretty extreme measures. The captain sighs, deeply regretting even asking. She explains most of these complaints are from the Church of the Sun, furious about their sacred forest. But fortunately, the Imperial Court is stepping in. And let's pause for a second, his absolute lack of remorse here is hilarious. He straight up tells her that's exactly why he did it, flashing a smug smile. Sighing, she hands him a small stack of mail, including updates from his old academy. But as she sifts through them, her eyes lock onto a highly unusual seal. She notes it's from the girl monastery, highly confused. Julian feels a wave of irritation, realizing this is how the Aurora Society decided to contact him. Odwin remarks that while they clearly dislike him, reaching out directly is incredibly risky. With a deadly serious gaze, she demands to know what he's hiding. Julian stays silent, leaving her baffled that a powerful secret society could make such a reckless slip-up. Suddenly, a soldier bursts into the room, shouting that the secretary's office is demanding a full report on the Bernardin incident. The terrified soldier quickly apologizes and scrambles out of the room. The captain sighs and shoves the letters into Julian's hands, telling him to get lost before more trouble arrives. Julian bids her goodbye with a smug grin. Once outside, an excited young boy runs up, eagerly asking if he really took down a massive demon all on his own. But with this dangerous letter in hand, a demon is the absolute least of Julian's concerns. He quickly sends the kid away to open the message in private, but as he reads it, he freezes in absolute shock. On the surface, it looks like a totally normal letter, but as he stares closely, a magical snake made of dark ink suddenly leaps off the paper, whispering that the Archbishop demands his presence. He instantly recognizes Eleanor's signature magic. Dispelling the ink creature, Julian figures the cult leader simply wants him to hand over the newly acquired demon horn. But here's the catch, only the captain and the Imperial cabinet knew exactly when he returned. Julian quickly realizes he's surrounded by spies and must watch his back. Entering the Grand Cathedral, Julian instantly notices everyone staring at him nervously. He hates the attention. Suddenly, a nun approaches with a polite smile, welcoming him back after his long absence. He greets Eleanor with a calm smile. She notes that wild rumors are spreading about his actions in Bernardin. Then, her illusion fades, revealing her true, stunning magical form right before his eyes. She brings up the crazy rumors about him slaying a massive three-horned demon solo and burning down an entire forest, asking to hear the real story directly from him. Julian claims to be flattered, but reaches into his cloak and pulls out the message. Staring her down, he coldly warns her never to send such dangerous letters directly to him again. She argues that the magical ink was only visible to his eyes, but Julian refuses to take risks. Annoyed, she asks how they're supposed to stay in contact then. Julian casually suggests he just drop by her place for face-to-face chats. Startled, she nervously jokes that he wouldn't even know how to find her hidden sanctum. Eleanor watches him leave, shaking. Surely, he's just bluffing. There's no way this man knows the deep secret she's hiding. But Julian just walks past her into the church. The excited archbishop welcomes him warmly, eagerly demanding to see the legendary demon's horn they sacrificed so much for. In response, Julian flashes a highly devious, malicious smile. He chuckles, casually admitting he didn't bring it. The masked leader is stunned, asking if the rumors about a three-horned demon were false. Julian confirms it was real, and so was its core. Losing patience, the chief demands to know where the stone is. As the other members stare in utter confusion, Julian calmly drops a bomb. He delivered it straight to the Imperial office. The leader is stunned, but Julian just smiles and confirms it. Oh, he is in deep trouble now. Trust me, you're going to want to see how he survives this. All right, you and I are about to watch this furious leader demand answers, but our main character just laughs it off, saying he took one step back to take 3 steps forward. The cult members scream in rage, calling Julian a traitor, but our hero just sighs and asks them why he would even bother coming back if he actually planned on betraying them. He explains his true goal was just gathering intel. Apparently, this is the very first demon stone the corrupt nobles have managed to collect. Once they unlock its power, they will hunt for more. Hearing this, the archbishop calms down, but still asks if that is really enough reason to hand over his precious artifact. The leader demands answers with burning eyes, while the other members get ready to strike. Chuckling, Julian plays it cool, teasing that there is obviously another major reason behind his actions. He mentions that rumors are exploding about the legendary hero who defeated the demon alone, the famous pillar of the blind eye and the successor to the holy sword. He smiles, warning them that everyone is watching him now, including some people they know very well. He asks if they are curious who will come after him, while the members scream that he is lying. Julian draws his blade, asking if they really want to fight. His sword ignites with blazing mana as he dares them to try, but the archbishop suddenly screams for everyone to stop. He demands to know who Julian means. Suddenly, an assassin lunges, but Julian swiftly parries the ambush, channeling his power to deliver a devastating counterstrike that blows the attacker away. The assassin groans in pain on the floor while our hero stands completely unscathed. Julian looks at the leader and drops a bombshell. If they are curious, he will tell them his own master, the legendary holy swordsman Hayden Reich, is coming. The archbishop explodes with furious energy. Our hero notices that playing the card of the Dawn Society and the holy sword completely threw the leader off balance. Terrifying mana floods the chamber as Tenelron screams. He roars that Hayden is the bastard who disfigured his face, and that he suspects him too. The archbishop realizes that slaying a powerful demon but bringing back absolutely nothing would look suspicious. Jumping up, the leader yells that he gets it, now that heartless teacher even suspects his own disciple. This mutual hatred for Hayden welds the hero and the archbishop into an alliance. The leader says he finally gets why Julian joined them, and our main character plays along smoothly. Julian lets out a quiet sigh of relief later, sitting at his desk. He bought himself some precious time. If he can play the Dawn Society and the court against each other, he might actually survive this crazy death game. But here's the part you and I need to watch closely. He has a stalker to deal with. It started as a minor nuisance, but our hero feels the danger growing by the day. He sighs, glad he at least knows the spy's identity. Suddenly, a servant boy interrupts his thoughts, entering with a letter from the cabinet. Julian calmly tells the boy to leave it on the desk. The trainee carefully places the papers down, but just as he turns to leave, our protagonist calls out to stop him. He remarks that Lazarus seems extremely busy lately. The boy nervously blames the blind eyes, stuttering that even trainees get buried in work. But Julian points out that this is way too much work for a simple recruit. After all, this was the exact same kid who ran off to deliver messages to the captain the second Julian returned from his mission. The boy nervously agrees. He stammers that he was just curious about the rare spirit stone. Julian smiles warmly, but points out how incredibly strange it is for a mere trainee to even know about such a highly classified artifact. The kid tries to act confused, but Julian has never once mentioned the term spirit stone around him, yet the boy did not seem surprised by the name at all. Only the court and the Dawn Society knew about that stone, Julian says. Lazarus completely freezes, pale with terror. As our hero explains, he knew something was off with this kid from day one. Julian puts a heavy hand on his shoulder, his voice turning deadly cold as he questions how a mere trainee keeps getting assigned to such crucial high-level tasks. That is impossible without a mole hiding inside the court, right? Now, pay attention here, our hero suddenly tells the boy to relax, smiling and promising he has no plans of hurting him. He just wants a friendly chat. Shocked, the boy asks if he can stop hiding now. Lazarus takes off his necklace, releasing a surge of purple mana that floods the room as the illusion fades. The kid stands tall, his nervous posture vanishing as he glares with sharp eyes. Julian asks if that was a mental spell. He looks like a completely different person. The spy admits he needed that enchantment to hide, then demands to know what Julian wants if he is not planning to kill him. Our hero relaxes, laughing as he proposes a very simple deal. He asks how the boy feels about working for him instead, leaving the spy incredibly suspicious of his real motives. Julian casually explains that he wants him to act as his personal double agent. The boy is terrified, unable to comprehend that Julian wants him to betray the powerful Dawn Society. Julian laughs it off, saying he just likes being in control. The boy yells back, asking if Julian really thinks he can be bought so easily, but our hero is not offering a free deal. With a low, threatening tone, Julian mentions how the boy regularly donates to a local nursing home, citing the exact amount of money. Lazarus completely freezes in sheer shock. He asks if that place is precious to him, laughing softly about how tragic it would be if some unfortunate accident happened to it. Lazarus glares at him with pure hatred. Julian chuckles and tells him to relax, claiming it was just a joke. He promises that if the agent decides to cooperate, he will personally fund that care home with massive donations. The boy hesitates, tempted by the offer. Julian chuckles, teasingly saying he suddenly felt a wave of generosity and a desire to do a good deed. The confused spy just stares at him in stunned silence. A few days later, a high-ranking bishop from Aurora meets with Lazarus, asking if he brought the requested intel. The boy hands over the letter, confirming he has it. The bishop reads the document, which details Haydenreich's upcoming travel plans, while the boy tries to mention a certain petition. But the bishop snaps at him to shut up, telling him to deliver this critical news to the archbishop right away. The boy bows his head, but the bishop notes he looks incredibly pale. He asks what is wrong with him. Deep in thought, the young spy struggles to choose his words, wondering if Aurora would actually protect him and Sister Turnia if things went south. Julian promised to fund their orphanage, and torn between his conflicting loyalties, the boy hesitates. The impatient noble snaps at him, breaking him out of his deep trance. Startled, the boy stammers that everything is fine. Meanwhile, elegant footsteps echo in a grand mansion as Julian arrives home, his servants taking his coat while he remains deep in thought. He cannot stop obsessing over that tense confrontation. I was so incredibly reckless with Lazarus, Siam thinks nervously, realizing that a sharper spy would have easily seen through his desperate bluff. Our hero never wanted to take such massive risks, realizing that playing Julian's role is starting to warp his mind. Just then, a maid reports that an urgent message arrived from his family. His older sister, Runa Kryhart, is getting married and wants him at the wedding. Without a second thought, the busy swordsman tells his maid to reply that his duties prevent him from attending. She nods to send the reply, but Julian suddenly stops her, declaring he will attend after all. As his aide prepares his suit, you and I know this wedding is going to be wild. All right, you and I are diving into a wild story. She wants him in his signature flashy pink suit, but he desperately begs for something more elegant. Our main character heads out to shop solo, stepping into the city's most luxurious boutique. The staff freeze instantly, absolutely terrified by the legendary swordsman standing before them. But the sheer volume of fancy outfits leaves him completely lost. Freaking out inside, he debates asking for help, knowing deep down his allies have zero fashion sense. Can someone help me choose something? He tries to sound friendly, but it comes off as a terrifying threat. The staff panic, apologize, and run, leaving him entirely alone. Meanwhile, an employee welcomes Eileen. She is also visiting the shop to grab a formal dress. Exhausted after a brutal week of research back at the academy, she complains about almost getting fired because some idiot bought up every moonstone nearby. Luckily, the Empire just tasked her with researching a newly discovered resource, powerful spirit stones. Totally hyped, the professor boasts about the amazing research paper she's going to write. When asked what she needs, she explains she has been invited to a wedding. Specifically, Runa Kryhart's wedding. As the clerk guides her to the dress section, Eileen finally takes a relaxing breath, thrilled to escape her endless paperwork for a bit. Admiring the gorgeous fabrics, she wanders through the store when suddenly, she freezes. She cannot believe her eyes. Julian is standing right there. Panicking, she immediately dives out of sight. The swordsman glances around, sensing a presence, before turning back to the outfits. Hidden nearby, she clutches her chest, wondering why she even jumped behind a rack in the first place. She remembers that even though he is from a branch family, her old classmate is still a noble. But why is a guy like him shopping for high-end outfits? Now pay attention to this, Julian usually dresses like a total sausage. Grimacing at his terrible fashion choices, she watches him confidently pull out the ugliest outfit imaginable. She realizes he is going to completely ruin the wedding with that eyesore. Just then, a kid runs past, calling her a weirdo for spying. Flushing with embarrassment, she musters up her courage and confronts him. She asks him flat out if he actually plans to wear that trash. Surprised, he chuckles, saying he figured she only cared about books, not fashion. She fires back that he clearly has no idea how formal dress codes work given his garbage style. When he looks confused, she snaps, asking if he is seriously playing dumb right now. She teases that maybe he holds a massive grudge against the Kryhart family, and wearing this is his silent way of declaring war on all high society. Our hero is completely clueless. He had no idea his clothes meant anything. Seeing his blank stare, she spins him around and points directly to the pattern on his back. She explains that the pattern is a war crest used when hunting down enemies. Laughing, she adds that while it is mostly decorative now, seeing a defector like him wear it is hilarious. Since our modern player never named Julian, he was totally in the dark. Exhausted from shopping and knowing this character only loves gaudy trash, he raises his hands in defeat. He sighs and pulls out his backup option. But when he reveals a ridiculously glittering suit, she stares in utter horror, bluntly asking if he is seriously wearing that trash. Eileen refuses to let him embarrass himself. Invoking the pride of her artistic noble family, she declares she will fix his wardrobe disaster herself. Relieved, the hero happily lets her take charge. With a sharp suit picked out, the wedding day arrives. The guard takes his invitation with trembling hands, visibly terrified of him. The swordsman walks inside looking sharp, but internally, Sihu is incredibly uncomfortable. He absolutely hates being at this wedding. I know what you were thinking. Why attend a wedding he hates? Well, there is a catch. This family holds rare spirit stones, and this event is his best shot to grab one. Julian's corrupt father owns one of those stones, and just thinking about him makes our hero sick. Keeping his composure, he enters the grand hall, and suddenly, the orchestra stops. The crowd freezes in absolute terror. He realizes the music died just because of him and sweats, finding the reaction overkill. Guests whisper in shock that a deserter showed up. Suddenly, a girl in a white dress runs up and hugs him tightly. His sister, Renea, is thrilled her brother actually came, waving excitedly and shouting how much she missed him. It is jarring to see someone show him real love. After hugging her brother, she turns to Eileen, expressing her surprise that the two of them are close despite being in different academy grades. He flinches, completely forgetting about their academy grade difference. She beams, admitting she is just glad he dressed nicely today instead of looking like his usual clown self. Instantly, you can feel Eileen's icy glare cutting right through him. She stares hard, silently demanding full credit for saving him from fashion disaster. He quickly plays it cool, claiming he made an effort for her big day. Renea looks confused, noticing Eileen off to the side, staring at him with disappointment. Renea smiles and thanks them both, but a voice interrupts. Her older brother, Joshua, storms over aggressively. She turns to welcome him, but he immediately grabs her wrist in a rough grip. He sneers, loudly demanding to know what she is doing, publicly shaming her for wasting attention on lowly branch family members at such a prestigious event. Pulling away, she insists she was just happy to see them, reminding him he should greet his brother too. Enraged, Joshua snaps, shouting that he would never call that trash his brother. And there it is, the toxic drama he expected. Joshua loudly demands what a branch family nobody is doing here when he is not even considered real family. Chuckling, our hero simply says he accepted a formal invite. Joshua snatches the letter right out of his hand, ripping it to shreds. The entire hall goes dead silent, watching. The jerk glares, threateningly declaring that as the true family heir, he has one message for him: get lost. Our hero just smirks, asking what happens if he refuses. Joshua sneers, unsheathing his sharp blade with a deadly hiss. He vows to show everyone exactly what happens to branch family trash who dare defy his authority, his arrogant reflection shining on the polished steel. This is Joshua Cryhard, the absolute worst troublemaker and chief bully at the entire academy. He formed toxic factions, bullied freshmen, and constantly disrespected low-ranking teachers. Nobody ever dared stand up to him. Now his arrogant voice echoes, demanding the Imperial dog fight him. Our hero can't help but smirk, wondering if this guy is incredibly brave or just phenomenally stupid to challenge the kingdom's fiercest swordsman like this. Before Joshua can even blink, the protagonist lunges. In a flash, he grabs the bully's arm, crushing it with overwhelming strength that cannot be resisted. As he squeezes tighter, he growls that Joshua had the nerve to hurt Renea. The heavy silence is broken only by the loud clatter of Joshua's sword hitting the floor. Stepping even closer, he whispers that the jerk should be ashamed. Suddenly, Heron yells for them to stop. When Julian argues back, Heron gestures to the watching crowd, reminding them of where they are. The coward breaks free, claiming Heron is right. And that is where we leave it, trust me. You want to see what happens next? All right, let's jump right back into the drama as Heron tells Joshua to stop making a scene. After all, he started this mess. Joshua freezes, finally realizing how embarrassing he looks. Annoyed, Heron adds that he is there representing their father, and Joshua's behavior is totally unacceptable. Meanwhile, Siu quietly reflects on what was just said. That means their father, the family head, is not here. Without him, getting the spirit stone is basically impossible. Our main character is totally disappointed, thinking this trip was a waste. Julian apologizes for the mess and checks if Renea is okay. With a proud smile, she says she is fine since he protected her. She tries to brush it off, but Julian suggests they should leave. Confused, Renea asks why, but her brother says even he knows when to exit. He pauses, turning to thank Lady Eileen with a smile, telling her that the outfit she chose is absolutely perfect. He bows, adding that she has an amazing eye and is truly worthy of her noble family. Instantly, an old memory flashes through the lady's mind. She remembers him saying it felt like stars were woven into the fabric. He had called it a wonderful enchantment, perfect for her. Now, feelings surge inside the mage as she remembers their shared past. Julian uses the moment to slip away, but suddenly a voice calls out from behind. He turns to see Renea running after him. Out of breath, she complains that he walks too fast and hands him a gift. Still panting, she asks if he only came to the wedding to see their father. She pulls out a small jewelry box, offering it as a keepsake from their late mother. His sister knows how much he had fought with their father over this specific item. Julian nods, wondering if he kept their father away. Meanwhile, Siu is surprised to learn Julian's mother is dead. Renea admits she sneaked the item out just for him. Their father would be furious if he knew, but letting it rot in storage is a waste. Gently, our main character opens the box. Now pay attention here. Inside lies a brilliant, magically refined spirit stone with zero demonic energy. Siu is stunned, realizing how little he actually knows about the character he possessed. Julian warmly thanks his sister. Renea laughs, saying she knew this was the right choice because she has never seen him look so genuinely happy before. It is rare for these siblings to get along so well. Renea waves goodbye, asking him to visit again soon, and he promises he will. Turning away, our protagonist leaves the palace. Siu is still in shock, realizing this legendary stone was actually an inheritance from Julian's mother. He swallows hard, feeling a sudden heavy wave of emotion. A single tear escapes his eye. Turns out this cold warrior actually has a heart. Meanwhile, their carriage speeds away through the quiet forest. Our main character is amazed that the cold Julian had such a sensitive side, wondering if some humanity still lingers within him. He chuckles softly. Despite the chaotic wedding drama, he got exactly what he wanted. Who would have guessed he would obtain the Spirit Stone like this? Siu wonders what to do with it, knowing that handing it to Aurora or the Empire is a terrible idea. That is when he remembers a forgotten skill, a unique power Julian possessed that has not been used yet. The Demon King's Vessel. This skill lets him absorb relics to gain massive power. Basically, our hero can consume spirit stones. He laughs, realizing how insane it would be if he became the Demon King. Still, playing the role of Julian is a real pain. The journey continues peacefully through the woods as he closes the ornate box. He is still cautious about carrying such an overpowered item, realizing he needs to learn a protective barrier spell to keep it hidden. After non-stop battles, our boy can finally relax at his quiet mansion. But suddenly, a cold chill shoots down his spine, making him jump off the couch. You and I both know something is wrong when the mana flow changes this fast. The swordsman looks for the source, careful not to let the intruder detect his own energy. Feeling no hostile intent, our warrior traces the strange mana signature. He steps into a room only to find a blue-haired, purple-eyed girl casually sipping tea. Well, Julian, she says, setting down her cup. Eleanor chuckles, mocking him for taking so long and explaining she got tired of waiting. She smiles, asking if guests shouldn't be treated well. Julian is dumbfounded, wondering how she got in. Siu is certain she charmed the staff. Sitting down, he asks Bishop Eleanor what brings her here. She playfully responds that it's just a casual catch-up between colleagues. Julian barely hides his annoyance at her casual attitude. Setting down her cup, she says she is actually here to resolve a serious matter, bringing up his recent mission where he defeated a demon in the village. He nods slowly. The bishop then looks at him closely and asks if it was a humanoid demon he faced. Instantly, our hero realizes she is testing his knowledge on human demonization. Confirming her suspicion, he gestures as a vision of the transformation flashes. Julian notes that typical horned beasts are completely different from that monster. Surprised, she asks him to clarify. He explains that it seemed more like a poorly made demon replica. She presses him on how much he really knows, but Julian plays dumb. Bowing slightly, she decides that is enough talking for today. Sarcastically, Julian asks if she got her answers. She admits she did, and that any further testing is no longer necessary. Turning away, the bishop notes he understands enough about the Aurora Society. She warns him that since he knows his role, there is no need to fight. Just like that, she vanishes. Julian sinks to the floor in relief. He either has to commit fully to Aurora or escape them entirely. Knowing his mansion is compromised, he needs to act fast. Confused, Heron asks why Julian wants to leave the item with him. He admits he thought Julian only came to punish Joshua for his behavior, but our hero just laughs it off, saying he does not care. Curiously, Heron asks what is inside the box. Heron shouts in absolute panic when he hears it is their mother's inheritance. He asks if Julian is insane for leaving such a precious keepsake behind, but Julian trusts him completely. The noble is the perfect person to guard it. Heron holds the box, completely shocked by this sudden, massive responsibility. Julian says it will simply be safer in his hands. Frozen, Heron wonders how Julian can trust him with their mother's legacy, knowing how much she meant to him. He assumes Julian is dedicating himself entirely to the Empire to make such a move. Julian just stares at him, totally confused by his brother's wild theories. Days later, Joshua's arm is still recovering after Julian nearly broke it. As a maid calmly approaches to change his bandages, he snaps at her to hurry up. You and I can't wait to watch Joshua lose his mind over Julian, the gray-haired illegitimate son who holds all the real power. This drama is just getting started. All right, you and I are starting with a brutal reality check. This guy could not even twitch against that insane speed, losing before the fight even started. A single water droplet splashes onto the noble's face. Shaking with absolute terror, the servant girl stutters an apology, completely paralyzed. Flat on the ground, she desperately begs him for mercy. He stands up, ready to strike her down. But a voice suddenly stops him mid-swing. It is Alpha's, the boy's own personal guard and vice-captain of the elite order of the Blue Lion. Joshua waves his hand, letting the terrified girl escape before he changes his mind. Shoving his wounded arm forward, he screams at the guard for letting a main family member get hurt. The guard tries to defend himself, stating he only followed the Patriarch's direct orders, but the furious boy cuts him off. Your only job is to protect the main Kryat family, he roars. Alphas quietly mutters an apology, while the enraged noble keeps screaming that a useless trash warrior like him will never find another job. Joshua turns away, mocking the guard's lack of courage, saying he wouldn't have done anything anyway. Leaning down, the noble dips his towel in water and throws it straight into his face. Out of breath, the boy tells him to shut his mouth, saying a worm's apology is completely worthless. Unfazed, the personal warrior steps closer and calmly asks if his master wants revenge on Julian. Desperate for payback, Joshua demands to know how. Alphys promises away as long as the noble does not ask questions. The guard explains that no normal warrior can face the overwhelming mana his brother possesses. Julian can coat his blade with raw mana, a dream for any warrior. Joshua snaps, telling him to get straight to the point. Strip away that magical advantage, and he becomes completely vulnerable, the guard explains. Reaching carefully into his armor, he pulls out his shattered spirit stone, warning him that this corruptive demonic power is completely unblocked. He hands the dark artifact to the boy. Immediately, Joshua stumbles back, losing his balance from the corruptive pressure of the stone. Alphys explains that this artifact completely shuts down the flow of mana in any human. Furious, Joshua fires back that he wouldn't be able to use his own mana to fight either. Laughing, the guard steps closer, saying he won't need mana at all to win. He reaches out, presenting a dark demon horn to the young noble. Meanwhile, back at his quiet palace, Julian is peacefully tending to his orchids. Now pay attention here, his quiet hobby is about to be interrupted. Lazarus suddenly bursts in, screaming that members of the Aurora are planning an ambush. Our protagonist sighs in absolute disbelief at the sudden intrusion, accidentally snapping the stem of one of his favorite precious plants. Suppressing his rising anger, he asks his guests to act normal so they can actually talk. Julian laughs off the threat, completely unbothered by an ambush, and confirms the bishops aren't behind it. The spy begs him to take precautions, but the Lord finds it much more fun to wait and see. His companion just stares, totally baffled by this insane decision. Our main character tries his absolute best not to throw this intruder straight out of the window. Turning around slowly, he casually asks if his companion actually likes plants. Lazarus watches in utter confusion as Julian continues his bizarre monologue about orchids. Plucking one of them, the Lord laughs and points out a rotting root, though luckily, the damage is still quite minor. The young spy struggles to grasp the hidden meaning. Seizing the moment, he reminds Julian of his duties as an academy instructor and mentions a massive party the cabinet is planning. Hearing that Hayden will attend makes Julian's eyes instantly spark with interest. Surprisingly, our hero keeps it simple, agreeing only to attend the academy and do his job. Right then, Lazarus is absolutely stunned by his master's unexpected choice. Is our protagonist going to use the cabinet distraction to completely deceive the Aurora? The worried spy realizes that knowing about the gym ambush gives Julian the perfect opportunity to strike first and crush them. The agent worries, realizing Julian is a terrifyingly brilliant strategist. Utterly overwhelmed, the elder tries to force a polite smile while sweating bullets from sheer anxiety. Julian, on the other hand, smiles with absolute, calm confidence. Wiping away his sweat, the elder admits he never expected the legendary swordsman to show up in person. With the big victory anniversary coming up, everyone assumed the young lord would be way too busy. A strange purple aura surrounds the old man as he stammers, mentioning how excited the students are for Julian's upcoming special lecture. Wait, a special lecture? Seeing his blank look, the anxious elder asks if our main character was kept in the dark. Closing his eyes to think fast, he lies and says he is looking forward to it. Inside, though, Sihu is secretly losing his mind. He never expected to play teacher. Later, inside the academy's main auditorium, a short-haired girl whispers to Rina that the guest speaker still hasn't shown up. Sighing with relief, Rina admits that's great news because she barely made it on time. Worn out from extreme training, she hopes this boring lecture will let her catch some sleep. Her classmate immediately notices how totally exhausted she looks. Rina is just glad they only have to sit and listen today. The girls whisper that these guests are usually elite nobles from the high-tier families, assuming today's speaker might just be some ordinary commoner. Now get ready, because this is where everything gets wild. The guest speaker is finally announced, and the entire room goes dead silent as they see his face. Rina's friend gasps loudly, shouting that an actual elite noble has arrived. Still half asleep, Rina rubs her eyes, blinks at the front of the classroom, and freezes. Standing right, there is none other than Julian. The young lord introduces himself formally, saying it is a true pleasure to teach them today. As she recognizes his face, Rina's eyes go wide, looking like she just saw a literal ghost. Sensing the heavy tension in the room, Julian warmly tells them not to be so nervous. He explains he is just there to give a brief talk as their upcoming practical exam evaluator, promising it is nothing too serious. Hearing this, the entire class is left completely baffled. To start, Julian poses a simple question, asking them why they choose to walk the path of the sword, Not a single student dares to raise their hand. Hoping to break the ice, Julian decides to put Miss Renee right on the spot. The girl is completely caught off guard by this unexpected question, almost replying with her usual rude tone before stopping herself at the absolute last second. Even though she absolutely detests him, he is currently their official guest lecturer, meaning she has to show some proper respect. With a clever dodge, she throws the question right back at him, asking for his own motivation. Julian instantly replies that he does it purely for fame and status. His blunt answer shocks Rina, who expected a fake speech about serving the imperial family. Forced to answer, she says she trains to strengthen her body and mind for her personal ideals, though in reality, it is all for cold-blooded revenge. The teacher praises her profound response, revealing that his question was not just a simple icebreaker after all. He notes that anything he could teach about swordsmanship is nothing compared to what they have already experienced in life. Besides, it is practically impossible to help them improve significantly in such a short amount of time. So instead of swords, the topic is auras, and as we watch her frozen face, trust me, things are about to get intense. All right, you and I are about to watch Rina learn something incredible. Every single human has aura veins to boost their body or weapon. Aura is a dead giveaway of the skill gap between two fighters. With a smile, the lecturer asks if anyone can see his current aura color. Finally, everything clicks for Rina. She fully gets what Julian means by the gap between enemies. The students all guess his aura is gray, but suddenly, a lone voice calls out that it is silver. She repeats it with total confidence and drops a bomb. He actually has a second color, light cobalt. The swordsman is wielding two different auras at once. Silver coats his sheath, while cobalt is packed into his hand. See, how well you perceive someone's aura shows exactly how clearly you understand the difference in your power. The girl worked herself to the bone to close their massive gap. Then, milking the suspense, Julian reveals there is actually a third color. This leaves Rina completely speechless. Julian notes that not a single student saw that third color. If your enemy cannot even detect your aura, the power gap between you is simply massive. Meaning, crushing them would be child's play. Biting her nail in frustration, Rina realizes she was being way too arrogant, and she still has a very long way to go. The moment class ends, Julian gets showered with praise. The students absolutely loved the lesson, even if it came from a random guest lecturer. The nervous headmaster approaches, admitting he was a bit worried at first. Our main character chuckles, agreeing that nobody would ever picture him teaching a class. Since it was a hit, the headmaster puts him in charge of the practical exams. Once he leaves, Julian decides it is time to wrap things up and head out. Walking out, he suddenly realizes he knows this hallway from the game. Forgotten memories start rushing back into his mind. Pay attention here, names like Black Knight, Forgotten Hero, and Hayden Rich flood his mind. Julian struggles to connect them until he remembers a brutal trailer scene. The Holy Swordsman is murdered. Our hero vows that tragedy will never happen on his watch. Meanwhile, back at Julian's house, an impatient hand taps against a sofa. Joshua is waiting, and he is not happy. Staring around, he judges the bizarre sculptures littering the entire room. Joshua quickly gives up trying to understand Julian's weird taste in art or why there are so many plants everywhere. Suddenly, a subordinate approaches, confirming the barrier is fully set up. This specialized field can completely block the flow of mana, waiting only for Joshua's signal to activate. Seeing the kid trembling like a leaf, Joshua sneers and asks why on earth he's so terrified of Julian. Inside the mansion, they have two elite knights who slay horned demons, 6 private guards from the Crifford family, a high-ranking mage, and a mana barrier. Surely, that is more than enough. Sweating, the boy stammers that Julian isn't just some guy. He genuinely believes all this power still won't be enough. When a frustrated Joshua demands to know why, the boy admits he's been sensing weird vibes in the mansion. Plus, despite the late hour, they haven't seen a single soul since arriving. He suspects Julian knew they were coming and set up a trap. Fuming, the silver-haired noble leaps from his seat and slugs the cowardly guard right in the face, screaming at him for being such a useless fool. Outraged, he asks how he dares to call himself a knight of the Cryart family. Shaking, the guard stammers out an apology. Joshua scoffs, telling him he just needs to trigger the barrier on command, not fight. Grossed out by his weakness, Joshua assures him that once the barrier is active, Julian won't be able to channel his aura at all. With a wicked grin, he boasts that with the horn's power, Julian is nothing. But here's the twist you and I were waiting for. Guards rush in, reporting new arrivals, and Joshua orders everyone to battle stations. Meanwhile, outside the gates, shadowy figures emerge from the bushes. Whispering that Julian must be asleep, William Highlands of the Dawn Society sneers that he cannot wait to tear our main character apart. The other members grumble with jealousy. This guy just joined, yet he is already a bishop while completely ignoring their ancient laws. They all belong to the Dawn Society, sharing a deep, burning hatred for Julian. They are absolutely certain that tonight is the night he finally dies. On top of that, William is out to avenge the Highlands family name. Noticing his hands shaking, another cultist asks if he is nervous. William snaps back to reality, claiming he just got a bit excited. Drawing his wand, he orders everyone to prepare for entry. Right before their eyes, he begins chanting an incantation to get them inside. He erects a massive barrier to mask their presence, completely hiding them from Julian's senses. Luckily, the target's entire staff went home before sunset, meaning the mansion is totally unguarded. Creeping through the dark corridors, William lights their path, but things suddenly feel deeply wrong. The others ask what is happening. The local mana flow is completely warped, making him feel like someone altered the entire environment. Meanwhile, one of Joshua's knights warns that Julian didn't come alone. A huge crowd is breaching the mansion right now. These are not servants, but master-tier mages. Joshua instantly panics, thinking Julian caught wind of his ambush. Meanwhile, William is having the exact same crisis because his magic is completely failing inside the mana barrier. Both invading forces come to the exact same realization. They have walked straight into Julian's deadly trap. Panicked, a knight begs to know what to do, but Joshua is too proud to run. Smirking, the young lord declares he does not care if it's a trap, he is going to teach that coward a lesson. Either way, Julian dies tonight. Since the barrier is active, their target must be heavily weakened. The only change is that his knights must handle Julian's reinforcement squad lurking right down the hall. The knights draw their swords, ready to strike. Joshua steps to the very front of his men, absolutely itching for a bloodbath. He kicks the door wide open, revealing the rival intruders. Sensing their high level, he still screams insults anyway, calling them total idiots for serving that trash Julian. William sneers back, mocking that the exact same applies to them, and these little kids should be deeply ashamed. A knight warns Joshua that this mage is casting spells inside the field, marking him as at least a third-class wizard. But the white-haired brat laughs it off. A mage is still weak up close and charges ahead. Swords clash violently. In the chaos, Joshua wonders why Julian is still missing. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoes down the hall, followed by a blinding flash of blue lightning. Looking out the window, Joshua spots a charred body smoking on the ground. He fumes with rage even with the barrier active. Some powerhouse unleashed massive energy while his own cowardly guard did absolutely nothing. That useless guard is getting fired. William squeezes his wand in disbelief at the raw power. However, this heavy magic barrier makes moving feel like wading through mud. Joshua watches the enemy wizard battle through pure exhaustion. He realizes he might need to deploy his secret weapon, but he must save that ace to kill Julian, not waste it on these minor underlings. Searching for any opening, Joshua watches his enemy. Spotting a gap, he throws a potted plant at the mage. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how this wild fight ends. All right, you and I are jumping right into a high-stakes duel as a clay pot flies at a paralyzed William, while Joshua instantly closes the gap. Desperately, the mage tries to cast a spell, but he is too slow. The swordsman disarms him with a smug grin, stealing his wand, before landing a brutal kick that sends William flying. Battered and bruised, William crashes against the wall in pure agony. Now he is completely cornered by Joshua's blade, who mocks him, stating third-class mages are totally useless inside magic barriers. Eyes burning with pure hatred, Joshua demands to know how a piece of garbage dared block his path, sneeringly guessing how much gold Julian paid him to do it, leaving William utterly bewildered. Without waiting, Joshua violently slams him to the floor. In a desperate bid to survive, the mage grabs his boots, screaming he was never hired by Julian. Joshua is highly skeptical, but William pleads, swearing his real target was actually Julian all along. Hearing this, the swordsman freezes in total shock, trying to process the revelation. But he quickly shakes it off, declaring he does not care. William blocked his way, so he must die. Covered in cold sweat, the terrified mage realizes his life is officially over. The sharp blade rests inches from his chest. Yet, right before the killing blow, a sudden disturbance halts the execution. Looks like this crazy knight has one more uninvited guest. Recognizing the newcomer, Joshua gasps in utter disbelief. It is Julian, walking in silently with an invisible, terrifying presence. On high alert, the swordsman retreats, shifting into a defensive stance. Ignore him entirely. Julian kneels down to examine the shattered clay pot scattered across the ground. Joshua tightens his grip, trying to suppress his rising fear, praying that his barrier will keep the monstrous Julian at bay. Gently touching the spilled soil of the broken pot, Julian sighs that this loss cuts deep, since he absolutely adored that little green plant. Now, Watch closely here. The silver-haired intruder is terrified because despite the active barrier, Julian's overwhelming pressure is totally unfazed. Coldly, our main character decides this arrogant brat needs a painful lesson. Rewinding a bit, Julian had just arrived home to find a bizarre vibe. While the mansion looked perfectly peaceful from the outside, the surrounding mana was wildly chaotic and unstable. He instantly realized what was happening. The ambush Lazarus warned him about. It was logical, given how many enemies despised this fox-eyed villain, making a stealth raid practically inevitable. But Julian was no longer the weakling of the past. He had heavily polished his skills and fully mastered the deadly moonlight sword. Stepping back into the present, the main character investigates his wrecked hallway. Dead bodies litter the floor, raising serious alarms, since a brutal struggle had obviously gone down while he was out. Then, something catches his attention, a shattered masterpiece on the tiles. The intruders destroyed everything. The original Julian would have been absolutely livid, but our main character remains surprisingly calm. Useless art did not bother him, but his calm instantly vanishes when his eyes land on a crushed ceramic pot. It was his favorite companion, his precious little houseplant. Seeing poor Angelica completely ruined triggers something dark inside him. He kneels beside the tragic mess. Angelica was the very first plant he nurtured and named after taking over Julian's body. Clenching his jaw, a wave of cold fury washes over him. Right then and there, he vows with absolute certainty that he will get bloody revenge for his plant. To avenge Angelica, he decides to slaughter every single intruder, drawing his moonlight sword. But then, he pauses. He realizes that getting this insanely murderous over a potted plant is a bit weird. Perhaps living in Julian's body was slowly warping his sanity. He takes a deep breath, trying to regain control and not let his feelings explode over something so minor. But sweet memories of tending to Angelica flood his brain. He watered her religiously every day. He would place her by the sunny window, gently wipe her delicate leaves before sleeping, and feed her premium nutrients. She was his pride and joy. You and I both know it sounds crazy, but this innocent plant's death genuinely pushes him into a state of absolute bloodthirsty rage. These rats must pay with their lives. Mockingly, Julian asks what their next move is. Since their cowardly night raid completely failed, closing his eyes, our main character calmly plans his next move. Capturing Joshua would be a breeze, but the mysterious mage is a wild card. Julian has no clue what magic he uses. If they team up against him, things might get tricky, so he decides to provoke them instead. He smirked, telling them that even a tag team wouldn't stand a chance against his power. He warns them that anyone who dares bare their fangs at him must be eliminated. However, acting as a merciful god, he decides to offer them a small lifeline. He tells them to fight each other, promising the survivor can walk away free. Confused and highly suspicious, Joshua assumes the sadistic villain is just playing a twisted game for his own amusement. Despite breaking into his estate, Julian views them as mere bugs. Still, if Joshua defeats the mage and uses his secret horn, the spiky-haired swordsman might actually stand a fighting chance. But William starts shaking violently, looking sick. Then, without warning, the mage launches a desperate surprise attack on Joshua. Joshua desperately yells that they should team up against Julian, but the panicked mage thinks it is a trap. Driven by pure survival instinct, William ignores the warning and aggressively strikes, completely blinded by fear. As the mage readies another spell, Joshua swiftly dodges, sprinting down the hallway and leaping into the air to prepare a deadly counter-strike. He unleashes a devastating slash straight across William's chest, critically wounding him. The mage collapses, completely lifeless. Catching his breath, Joshua looks down at his dead rival, mocking his foolish final actions. With the mage dead, he must face Julian the smiling executioner, who absolutely never spares anyone who shows him the slightest hint of hostility. Blood drips down Joshua's face as he realizes death is staring him right in the eyes. Facing Julian feels like standing beneath a heavy guillotine. Squeezing his hilt, he desperately searches for a way to escape this nightmare. That is when he remembers the mysterious horn Alphas gave him. It is a forbidden artifact that grants demonic strength. If he activates it, he might actually beat Julian, or at least survive to see tomorrow. But as he reaches into his cloak, he feels a torn pocket. The horn is gone. Glancing over, he sees William feebly crawling on the floor, clutching the stolen demonic artifact. The bloody mage whispers that he had no choice, crying out that he wants to live and will sacrifice anything to survive. Begging the archbishop for forgiveness, William crams the horn into his mouth. Instantly, his flesh warps and a grotesque horn erupts from his head. Joshua stands completely paralyzed, watching the horror unfold. Meanwhile, Joshua curses Alphas in his head. That shady knight promised they would gain demonic power, not that they would literally turn into a rampaging monster. With folded arms, Julian asks where the horn came from, and Joshua confesses he received it from a knight named Alphas. Our main character immediately recognizes Alphas as a high-ranking member of the Dawn Society, a faction that wants him dead. Luckily, the horn William swallowed looks like a cheap imitation. This crude mutation matches the low-class demon Julian fought in the slums, likely a side effect Eleanor warned about, making it far weaker than true shadow beasts. While Julian analyzes the situation, the mutated William unleashes a terrifying, blood-curdling shriek. Joshua shields his eyes, fearing the beast. Desperate, the spiky-haired boy begs Julian to slay the demon, arguing it is his duty as a crier to save him. Trust me, you and I are in for an insane battle next time. You and I are watching the demon William stomp forward, building massive speed as he targets poor Joshua. The beast lunges with razor-sharp claws, ready to rip him apart. From the sidelines, Julian casually comments that the kid is doomed unless someone steps in, prompting the terrified swordsman to desperately beg and call Julian his brother. Crying his eyes out, he begs his big brother to save him, shocking our protagonist with this sudden attitude flip. Meanwhile, the demon gets closer and closer to Joshua. But surprisingly, the beast runs right past the terrified boy. Julian realizes the monster switched targets, completely drawn in by his own overwhelming, murderous aura. Driven by pure instinct, our main character is fully prepared to drag this fiend straight to hell. Some might think it is ironic that Julian hates demons so much, yet actively wields their terrifying power. With the monster rushing in, Julian grips his blade, completely unfazed. He lets out a mocking laugh, treating this massive threat like a harmless bug crawling toward him. Before the demon can even strike, William shrieks and faceplants hard onto the ground. Julian's lightning-fast blade has already sliced a massive gash right into its shoulder. Showers of blood erupt as Julian cold-bloodedly watches his enemy squirm, quickly noticing that William possesses insane healing powers. Human desires usually warp when turning demonic, and this former mage's desperate will to survive has morphed into endless regeneration. Watching from afar, a terrified Joshua wonders how anyone could possibly kill a beast like this. Julian just smiles, realizing he is genuinely enjoying this fight. A top-tier human mage who once cast legendary spells has degenerated into a mindless beast that can do nothing but heal its wounds. Now pay attention here, our main character finds this entire situation absolutely fascinating. Using his perception skill, Julian knows that no amount of regeneration can save the monster if he crushes its core. His razor-sharp eyes scan the beast, quickly locking onto a bizarre anomaly right on the demon's head. He pinpoints it instantly. The core is right there, exposed, as if William is practically begging to be ended. But the stubborn ex-mage refuses to go down. The demon cracks its shoulders, healing its wounds and prepping to fight. Watching his opponent's every twitch, Julian calmly asks if they can finally get back to the main event. The demon roars in agreement, and a thrilled Julian tells it to bring everything it has got. Under the night sky, his moonlight sword glows with blinding power. Utterly fearless, the fully transformed William charges head-on at our hero with absolute brute force. As the beast closes in, Julian swings a blindingly fast horizontal slash, shearing off its entire left arm like wet paper. The sheer impact splatters dark blood across our protagonist's face, but he casually brushes it off, treating the monster's desperate effort as completely pointless. Refusing to stop, the demon lunges again, forcing Julian to parry with his blade. Infuriated, the young hunter demands to know how a mere monster dares to strike back against a professional demon hunter. With a sudden, savage vertical slash, Julian completely turns the tide of the battle. The brutal strike cleaves off the beast's other arm, sending another wave of blood across his face. Undeterred, he shifts into an aggressive stance, readying a lethal finishing blow aimed straight at the core inside the monster's head. Spotting a critical opening, the boy leaps forward, using the demon's chest as a stepping stone. Pulling his arm back, a wicked grin spreads across his face as he prepares to end this fight once and for all. With one final thrust, he pierces the core, shattering it like cheap glass. The massive body collapses backward, and Julian smoothly leaps off his falling foe. The monster's eyes go completely lifeless, its healing factor totally dead. With his blade driven deep through William's face, the fearsome demon finally crashes onto the cold floor. Our hero looks down, wiping his hands and brushing off his clothes with ultimate pride. Pulling his sword free from the demon's skull, he boldly shouts to the heavens that he is Julian, the legendary demon hunter. But let's pause for a second behind that cool pose. He is actually quite disappointed. Meanwhile, our witness is left completely speechless. Joshua is shaking like a leaf, completely terrified. The victorious swordsman struts down the hall in his spotless suit, calmly approaching the shivering young noble, kneeling on the floor. Resting a hand on his chin, Julian observes the boy's absolute terror. Sure, the kid deserved to be punished for breaking in at night, but this young master is highly valuable to the powerful Cryheart family. Recruiting him to his side seems like a brilliant move. Julian kneels down, places a heavy hand on his shoulder, and whispers a bone-chilling congratulation for simply surviving this horrific night. While a dark aura leaks from his body, we skip to later, where Julian sits alone, deeply analyzing a mysterious replica demon horn. He never expected to find another fake horn here after discovering one in the slums. According to the original novel, these replicas should only start causing chaos once the Dawn Society grows its dark influence across the Empire. Tapping the artifact on the table, he realizes the timeline is moving way too fast. This disaster was only supposed to trigger long after Rina graduated from the Magic Academy. That is because the mastermind behind these replicas is deeply connected to the exact person she is hunting down for revenge. Connecting the dots, Julian realizes the mastermind behind these horns has to be the legendary Black Knight, a masked warrior who hides his identity from the Empire while secretly crushing the Dawn Society with his overwhelming power. The true identity of that knight is none other than the holy swordsman Hayden Reich. But if the Black Knight is already active, these replicas should not be appearing yet, or at least rumors would be spreading. This dead silence is deeply concerning. Perhaps Pintel has not made his move yet, since the Black Knight only gains massive fame after preventing Pintel from stealing the powerful Soul Stones. Since his ultimate goal is to stop the demon god's resurrection and dismantle the Dawn Society, this knight is definitely an ally in Julian's book. But our main character cannot believe the Black Knight would sit idly by while danger brews. This gut feeling comes from his absolute trust in Hayden, not just knowledge of the plot. After all, the man is the ultimate protagonist of this world. Either way, you and I know he has to focus on what matters most right now, setting a perfect example.